IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast, live here on a Friday, which of course means a little Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. Ryan Roberts here at Rise in Draft on Twitter, joined by my guy, Sean Davis, the Lucky Lefty Podcast. Make sure if you're not subscribed to Lucky Lefty, you guys can go to their YouTube channel. You can also go to CFB Nation and all that good stuff on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. I hear they spin it differently, and Sean, I know that you're ready to spin it on the mailbag section of the podcast, but that has to wait for a little bit. We'll get to the mailbag, of course, today. Already have a ton of mailbag questions, so make sure you guys keep cycling them into the chat at any time. MB before the question, so we can distinguish what is a question to what general chatter is. And of course, there's a lot of chatter in the channel already today, so make sure to throw an MB before that. We really appreciate that. Sean, we got an exciting one though today. Couple special guests that will be joining the podcast today. So there is a possibility there being breaking news during the show, and it will be a potentially positive one for Notre Dame fans. So you can get your skepticism out of the chat for a second here. Sean, before I kick it to our first conversation we're having today, how are you doing, Sean? I know it's been a turbulent 24 hours to say the least.
Oh, I'm doing great.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
I'm doing great. I'm ready for the bowl game. I'm ready for National Signing Day, the portal. I'm doing fantastic.
Oh man, that's good. That's good. I am also doing well. Except for forget it. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole here. We're going to get the show started, folks. Recruiting hour. If you have any team questions or college football questions or anything else mixed in between, throw them in the chat. We'll be able to hit that during the mailbag. I wanted though to start us off today with a special guest. I don't know if you guys joined us before the season started, but I did this great segment. I thought it was great anyway. I don't know if other people disagree with that, but I did this great segment, Sean, called Carson's Corner, which of course is with 2024 Notre Dame commit, soon to be signee out of Archbishop Moeller in the state of Ohio, Carson Hobbs, and really highlighting his process and everything that he's got going on. And obviously he is less than 3 weeks away from National Signing Day, and a lot of, just figuring things out down the stretch, talking about preparation for the next season. So folks, we're going to start you off with a nice interview today. The return of Carson's Corner. Welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Folks, it is the return that you all have been waiting for. This has been months in the making. I was texting Carson Hobbs the other day that you need to get this thing back rock and rolling, man. His season is officially over. His eyes are straight forward to his Notre Dame career in the very near future. The return of Carson's Corner with Mr. Carson Hobbs, star 2024, soon to be signee with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Carson, what's going on, man? It's been a while. Fans are excited to see you back, man. We're back.
We back. Just excited to be back, man. It was a very long season, but now we get to look forward into my next football season at Notre Dame.
It was a really long season for you, man. I was looking through the schedule and I was like, dang, he played 15 games. Like, that is a long season, man.
I mean, 30 weeks of working out. It was.
Well, I guess that's a good place to start. How's the body feeling, man? Be able to kind of give it a little bit of rest maybe for a week or two afterwards and do all that type of stuff?
Now, I told myself I would try to stay away for 7 days without working out, just to
nice.
Heal my body and everything. A lot of bruises, a lot of bumps. And then look at me now. I'm over here doing Pilates as a side hustle, just trying to make sure I'm still being in shape and getting my body right and just making sure I'm taking care of myself. So I told myself I wouldn't do 2 weeks. Just 1 week, just 7 days of trying to just not do heavy lifting or nothing. And then after that, I'm back on grind.
I love it, man. I remember the days where I could do that. And now it's like, I do one workout and my body is wrecked for like 3 days. So yeah, I'm God bless you, man. You're ready and you're working back to it. And I obviously want to talk a lot about the season because you guys got off to a bumpy start, which we'll talk about, right? But then you went on a crazy run and nearly to the state finals, and it was a tremendous year for Archbishop Moeller. But I want to start us out here, Carson. We are less than 3 weeks away from National Signing Day, from the first signing period, which means you are going to be signing that dotted line, man, and become an official member of the Notre Dame family. I mean, and I mean, I know you're already a member of the Notre Dame family, but
Right.
just kind of looking forward to for a second, man. How's it feel? You're finally here about.
Dream come true. I just feel like, always got to thank God, but just got to keep working and just excited to see what I can end up bringing to the family. It's been a long wait, and every single day I think about just the quicker the signing day, the quicker I get to come home. So I'm
That's
excited.
it, man. Well, and I know you guys have a lot of great players, so you're going to have a few players signing that day as well, I'm sure. But what do you know what you guys have planned as far as is like there a big ceremony? Like what are
Oh,
what's
at
the
our
school doing for
school,
you guys? Yeah.
yeah. So we're gonna go in the gym. We got to dress up. We're dress code. The media, the news will be there, and then actually Notre Dame. We have some Zoom meetings coming up of what to
Nice.
expect here
Cool.
on the 11th coming up. So we have a lot of talks, and then
Nice.
in-home visits. They come and talk to us about it, so it'll be nice.
That's dope. Yeah, I was talking to we had Cam Williams on the show pretty
Yeah, talk
recently, and
about
he
I'm goofy. I got
well,
some
I'm gonna
for him.
ask you about that at some
I
point, but he
got
was
some
also
for him.
well,
We
he was telling us about you guys have kind of already started the Zoom meetings and just talking with the staff and all that type of stuff, just kind of as a group, which is very exciting now that because you guys haven't really had there hasn't been really much up and downs with the 2024 class. For the most part, it's just been like you guys committed, you guys have stayed together, and you guys are about to sign together. You know what I mean? Like it hasn't been much
There's
drama.
been one, right? That the Brandon Davis Swain.
Yeah, so first player that committed in the 2024 class, Brandon Davis, and then you remember Isaiah Canyon as well, right? He also
Oh, he
decommitted from
was
Notre Dame.
fun. Yeah, he was
But
cool.
for the most part, there's been no drama really. You know,
Not at all.
you guys have some really highly ranked players from all over. I mean, you're from Ohio. We talk about Cam from Illinois, CJ from Michigan, a lot of Midwest kids, but then we go down to, I know Logan Thomas is pretending to be from Ohio, but he's down in Texas originally.
Yeah, he
Right?
really is.
We got some Florida flavor in the class. You got a little bit of everything in this class, man. I guess a brief question would just be, how is the class going? How's the class doing? How is the kind of the vibes in the group chat and all that good stuff?
They're always like really good. Like that's like I don't know like anybody's ever had any controversy. Like we just all like click. You know what I mean? Like me and Logan the first time we ever met, like we FaceTime every day now, but
Oh, really?
Logan Saldate, Logan Thomas, we talk every day too. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just like me and Saldate, he's from Cali. I met him at the Ohio State game. Now we FaceTime every day and play the game together. You know what I mean? Like that's my boy. Like, that's my boy. So I just like it, the fact that that these are the people when you could bond with people this quick, imagine over the course of 4 years, the family and the support system you'll get to have.
That's see, you're a mastermind. Okay, I'm going to tell you why you're a mastermind, because you're already being friends with the wide receivers. You're getting inside their minds, Carson. Don't lie to me, man.
Yeah. But as soon as we step on that field, though, he knows it means business.
I love it, man.
He knows. Yeah, I can't wait.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm excited for you guys. I mean, you only get that chance to sign once, right, out of high school, which is awesome. So I'm excited for you guys, truly, and I know it's going to be a great day. I haven't talked to you about this, but we're going to have a big signing day special that day, and we'll have to have you on live after you sign if you get some time, and everybody else involved as well. But it's going to be dope. Last question about that, and then we'll move on to the season in review. Family, how are they? How excited is Pops, Mom? How is everybody doing on that end?
I think we're having a little signing day party, like celebration after I think the day after. So it'll be that night. Just have some people that impacted me in my life in some way, shape, or form over, just to be able to just kind of talk and just reminisce about the old days of where we all started at.
That's great, man. I know you're really going to enjoy that. So let's talk the season in review a little bit. So for people that don't follow Ohio high school football for a second, Archbishop Moeller, of course, is one of the premier programs in the States. Ended the year with a 10-5 record. Got a couple playoff wins, though, along the way. There was a stretch, Carson, I talked about. You guys started the year because you guys had a darn hard schedule to start the year, man. Like, it was brutal. So you started the year 1-3, but then you guys went on this crazy run, winning 9 of your next 10 games, winning a couple playoff rounds, eventually falling to a really good Springfield team, 26-19 in overtime. But that was obviously a highly contested affair. Let me ask you, because as a senior leader, you guys got off to a little bit of a rough start. What do you attribute to rebounding, getting on a good wavelength, getting into a good groove, and then finishing the season off on a very strong note?
I'd probably say self-reflection first.
Okay.
A lot of times when things go wrong, people try to point the finger, and our head coach always says point the thumb. So when you realize what you're doing wrong in your 20 square feet first, and just try to take accountability, then after you fix those type of issues, I feel like as everybody fixes their own issues, then we look together as a team to feel like, okay, well, you fix your issues, I fix my issues. As a team, everybody fixes their own problems. Then we come together and we talk about solutions. So I think that just
Yeah.
ended up coming in our favor and being able to just take trust in the new coaching staff. I'd say just having, Coach Sharp, Coach B, just being first year, like, a lot of guys are, maybe not confident in them in the first couple games because, Coach Elder had left,
Sure.
led us to like 24 wins in 2 seasons, state semifinals twice, like a game away from state. Like it's hard to lose trust in somebody like that and then have somebody else come in and think, all right, yeah, like you're not him yet. So, we just
Right.
had to really adapt and be able to trust our coaches. And I feel like after all that happened, we ended up trusting the plan, trusting the process, then moving swiftly. And then we got one win, and then we would get another. And then we would go back and film on Sunday and realize, like, okay, we can really do this thing. And
Yeah.
then that's how it all came together.
You guys had a little bit of a vibe like a Notre Dame, for instance, where it's like every single week they're playing a great team. And
Oh,
that's what I
yeah.
felt like for you guys this year. Cause I mean, you
Yeah.
guys were playing like Ben Davis is Mark Zachary, 2025 corner, who's fantastic. Notre Dame
Yeah.
is pushing hard for him. You played against Tyler Cherry, 2024 quarterback that's committed to Duke. You played against Logan Thomas. You played against Tabron Benny Powell. You played against Aaron Scott, committed to Ohio State in the 2024 class. It's a daunting schedule, man. What was it like just week in and week out playing against such high level competition?
Well, it's all you can ask for. That's why you come to Moeller,
Yeah,
honestly. And that's why people come to Notre Dame, right? The only way I can be at my best is playing the best competition around. So I feel like
yeah,
if I, not disrespecting anybody or anything, but if I played in Division 2 or Division 3 and didn't see that level of competition every week, how is that preparing me for the college level? A
for
lot of
sure.
these guys I play now, I'll see next year. You know what I mean? So that's what I enjoy. Having those matchups, playing the receivers we play, playing the teams we play is just a blessing, honestly, because those are the people that make me who I am and make me better.
Yeah, and you also played in Indiana a little bit this year. You played in Ohio. You even played
Yep.
did you play at King? You were at King, right? So you went to
Yep. At
Detroit in
King.
that one? Yeah.
Yep.
So you were all over the map too, man. So you got to get used to that because Notre Dame obviously playing the national schedule. They're traveling all over the place, which
Yep.
it'll be good time, man. Well,
A&M first game next year.
I know, man. Oh, that's gonna be so.
Is that at
That,
A&M?
I think that is at A&M. I'm
Got it.
almost 100% certain that it's at A&M. So that's really cool because I don't know about you, but that's a place I've always wanted to go to. I've always wanted to go to Kyle Field because they have the 12th man, and they get so loud in that stadium that it measures in the decibels, like on the Richter scale at times. You know what I mean? Like it gets loud in there, man. I've heard it's
Yeah.
crazy.
My
So
first game ever will be in
I was gonna
Aggie
say
Land.
for a first college game, that's wild, man. And I know you'll be rocking it down there, and I'm excited for you guys for sure. I mean, because a lot of talent on this team coming back, man, including the 2024 class that's obviously coming in. Well, let me ask you about your season, Carson, because obviously we had talked about it when it first happened, but I know you had the thumb injury that started off the season. You were in the club and everything.
Yeah.
How do you feel just kind of looking back on your year? Ended up not missing any time because you're a warrior. How do you feel about just kind of your individual season in review and how you played this season?
I would say Ben Davis was a pretty bad start for me. It's not what I expected. It's not what I wanted. I would just say I don't like to make any excuses. It was just like I had to get used to being able to not be able to use two hands to touch somebody, and then also it was like the cast was so big to the point where people were to smack my hand down. It was 4 or 5 pounds, so it would like stay there for a second. It was different. But other than that game, like I take full accountability. This wasn't my best game of play. It just wasn't. But
Sure.
the rest of the season, I feel like I played great. I ended off the year with 13 PBUs, 31
Nice.
tackles, and I think we only let up in man-to-man coverage 3 catches. So
Wow.
and no touchdowns let up. So that always feels great.
I know, man. Every week I would check in with you and you'd be like, yeah, 3 pass breakups, no completions this week. I'm just like, this is just
No,
like a
I mean,
weekly thing, I guess. Yeah.
no, there was like I would say from week 6 to week 9 or 10, like until the King game, I got targeted. I still had 2 PBUs that game, but week 6 through I think 9, I didn't get a target. Like
Wow.
versus Elder, I got one target, and that's when I got my interception.
Mhm.
Versus X, I don't let him. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I played pretty. Actually, yeah, I played really good after the Ben Davis game. It was just a humbling experience. I needed it. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
loved it. I loved it because the best thing about losing as a team is
Mhm.
everybody just gets hungry. And then
Sure.
you just start to work harder and you start to realize your mistakes and then you fix them quick, right? Because you don't want to lose no more. So
Yeah.
that's what we needed. That was yeah.
I want to ask about possibly your best game of the season. You guys defeated Lakota West in the playoffs, 22-0. I think you had like 4 pass breakups, 3 solo
Yeah.
tackles, and you had a scoop score in that game. What was that game like for you, man? I felt like you were in a zone during that one. Like it was like you
Yeah.
could do anything that night.
Well, actually, their receiver number one, Brendan Remy, he was, I think he's probably going to end up being All-State this year. He's one of my good friends, but he is a trash talker. And when people trash talk to me before the games or just over the social media and stuff, it kind of just triggers something in my brain that now, like, it puts me in a different mode. Like, when you take shots at me, not only at my team, but then just at me, especially, I start to practice different that week. And it's like a good motivating thing, actually, because in college, I know week in and week out, we're going to hear everything from the fans, the media, all that. So I
Sure.
like the matchups, right? Like, I knew it was going to be me and him one-on-one on the island. And I practiced my butt off that week, and then the preparation for my teammates, the receivers on our team that are some ballers, helped me throughout the week, run routes, do all that. And then on Friday, I just went to execute. I was just, I don't know, I had that white ski mask on and put the Joker gloves on that night. I was ready to go. It was fun.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean you had so many great highlights in that game. I mean throughout the year you did as well, but let me ask you this cuz you did see a couple fellow Notre Dame commits in 2024. So let's do some I guess scouting of yourself of your own for a second. So you guys played against St. Edward which is
Yes.
obviously where Logan Thomas goes now. 28-21 loss. I know that was a really good game where you had a chance at the end, but unfortunately
Yep.
it just didn't roll your way. Seeing Logan Thomas in person, maybe for the first time on the football field, that is.
Yeah.
What was your impression?
He
What
was
were
a
your
baller.
takeaways? Yeah.
He was a baller. I know. I mean, I don't know if Matt got sacked, but I do remember he had a really good 4th-and-1 stop on Jordan on a pitch play.
Okay.
That's I do remember that he did have a really good stop, but we didn't really throw the ball that much to the second half, so I don't really know if there was opportunities for him to get sacked. It was just we were running it with Jordan. Second half
Yeah.
though, we started killing it with the pass game. So watch out. We have a really really good 2025 receiver named Javon Love. You probably saw him. He had
I've seen the
I mean,
name.
yeah,
Yep.
he almost had 1,000 yards. He should have, but he got hurt during the West game. But he by far was, I'd say, probably top 2 receiver in the state, and he
Wow.
balled out against Eds. Against Eds, he had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. I've heard that name. I know your tight end in the state as well, if I remember correctly. Like you got
Oh, I just lagged. What'd you say?
I said I've seen Love. I've seen his name around. You guys also have a really good tight end, if I remember correctly, as
Eli
well.
Jacob Duffy. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
good.
And then the punter. I don't know why, but I've seen the punter's name all over the place. Like he's a really
Ethan
good punter.
Page. He's the
Yeah.
best punter in America. He's insane.
That's
He
funny,
actually
man.
put 70. It's
Really?
crazy. Yeah,
Wow. Notre Dame
maybe
might need to
80.
recruit him.
He's flipped the field before completely.
Wow. That's yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw him because I'm pretty sure I watched the first game of the season against Ben Davis live, and I'm pretty sure I saw him have a crazy punt in that game, if I remember correctly. But I could be
Yeah.
wrong about that. But I just remember his name, like he stuck in my mind for some reason. I was like, man, Archbishop Muller's got a really good punter. He got a really
Yeah.
good one. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So second teammate you played, Tabron Benny Powell, Lakota West. Now you guys won 22-0. I know that was a little bit of a defensive game, and obviously your offense put up enough points to win handedly in the end. What did you see from Tabron during his maybe his defensive stuff?
Oh, well, I feel like in that game I was so much more on the bench. Like after we would
Yeah,
go, I would go straight to the sidelines, and go sit down. So like I was facing the crowd, and then like sometimes I would go back and forth and watch.
gotcha.
I really didn't even get to like analyze it at all. I think, yeah, I didn't really get to analyze this play that game. I was so locked in just because every down, like if we would get a 3 and out, I just had to be ready to go back in.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I think he had a tackle, he had a touchdown saving tackle on Javon, I think. that
Nice.
broke deep.
Gotcha. Well, he ended up having a really good season for Lakota. You guys, man, I'll be honest with you, Carson. You know, I would never lie to you. I thought that game was going to be a very tight game, you guys versus Lakota, because I just thought you guys both had really good defenses. It was just going to kind of be like a little bit of a dogfight. You guys handed it to him, man. Like you handed it to him. So
They
you did
didn't.
it.
They didn't even make it to the. Well, they did make it to the red zone, but we got to stop.
Nice. Defense dominated that football game.
Yeah.
You ended up big accomplishment. I know I was texting you about this. You made All-State, man. You made All-State as a senior. How'd that feel?
It was just a lot of work put into it. So I'm just glad that I finally get a little bit of recognition. I still feel like a lot of people don't see my true abilities yet. So, that's just these are minor. I mean, they're great awards to be able to talk about, but also the end goal is one day coming up to Notre Dame and winning a national championship. So, my head's still just locked on. And I know, at the time you want to celebrate it like, yeah, I made All-State or blah, blah. But now I'm just like, all right, now how can I get better? I just want to find out a way so now I can be first team or true freshman All-American. Like, that's the next goal. I like to forget about goals quick because the world will lie to you. So, the more people talk about you and talk you up, it's not helping you. I got to get better, and I got to find out a way that I can go achieve my next goal.
It can really honestly stunt growth a lot when people tell you how good you are. Like it really can, because then you read your press clippings, maybe you skip a workout because you're just happy with yourself. And that's where bad habits are created. So I think that's a great mindset. Another player that received a great honor, which I just want to talk about. I don't like talking about Michigan on this podcast for obvious reasons, but your teammate, Jordan Marsh, who is one of the top running backs in the 2024 class as well, he was named, and he's committed to Michigan, which is why the little joke was thrown in there. He was named Mr. Football in the state of Ohio, which is obviously I saw the video that was posted, man. It was really cool. It was really cool. They brought him up and got a nice hug with the coach and everything. And it was a really good moment, obviously. Just your thoughts on him winning that award. And because I know you guys have a great relationship, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my best friends. I love him to death. And I don't really know anybody that works as hard as that kid. So since freshman year when they moved him up to varsity and just telling him like he wouldn't get a lot of snaps, but he still would play on varsity as a freshman and like the serious games and stuff, I knew he was going to be great. And I believe he should have won it last year too, honestly. I think he had a better year nobody understands. He had a better year last year than he did this year.
It was more productive, right? Like he had more yards and everything last year, right? Yeah.
Way more. And this last year, he played really good this year, like amazing, like Mr. Ohio football last year. I mean, this year, but last year he played even better. So everything that kid has coming his way, he deserves. And I do wish Notre Dame would have recruited him because I know for a fact that they would have recruited him. He told me they were his first choice. Nice. So that was a tough one. That would have been amazing to be able to come play with my brother in the next 4 years. But
you know what's funny about that is that I believe Jordan was actually at the Irish Invasion a couple years ago when CJ Cam and all those guys were there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
he was.
I mean, I think Jordan's a great player. I think he's going to be really good for Michigan. Hopefully, if Notre Dame plays Michigan, though, you guys are able to kind of get the victory on him, so it's not like a last laugh type of thing. I hope that we don't get there, but,
Yeah. Nah, I mean, man, I would have loved to have that kid come play with me. That is my boy. Like, we going to be together tomorrow night, and whenever we talk about it, he's always like, come to Michigan. And I'm like, come to Notre Dame, man. You know, he knows that was his true home at first. He knows it.
Well, I'll say this, man. The transfer portal is popping every year now, so you never know. Maybe he'll come over at some point. I don't know. I don't know if that's in the cards, but we'll see. We'll see. Regardless, he's going to do great things in Michigan. You're going to do great things in Notre Dame.
Yep.
You talked about preparation, man. What does the regimen look like for you now outside of just doing schoolwork and everything? Like, how are you preparing for? Because you're obviously not an early enrollee because of the school's restrictions and everything. But what are you doing on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis to get ready?
Well, I'm going to put on 10 pounds of a healthy lean weight, and I'm going to talk to the Notre Dame staff about that, the best ways to do it. I'm going to start boxing during the winter, not really sparring, but more perfect footwork and great hand placement and hand speed. I want to be able to have very quick feet, very quick hands, like enhance them even more than they've been this year. And then Also training 2 to 3 times a week, and then we're gonna run track this year to end it off. So I want to go into Notre Dame at full capacity.
Nice, man. Nice. Are there any early goals you have for your? I mean, I know you talked about wanting to be true freshman, All-American, all that
Yep.
type of stuff. But what are some things that would make, I guess, a first year with Notre Dame successful for you?
I want to actually get playing time, and I know a lot of people have opinions or whatnot, but I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna give my best shot. I mean, myself, the best shot I have to compete and work my butt off to try to get playing time. That's my goal,
I love
and
it,
not
man.
have to redshirt. So I
Yeah.
truly do want to get playing time. If that's my honest opinion, I'm gonna work my butt off to do it. So
Yeah.
I know.
Well, we talked about this before we start, man. But you're going to be playing for a coach, Mike Mickens, who has been doing a really good job getting some young guys ready to play. I mean, you talked
Yep.
about Benjamin Morrison as a true freshman 2 years ago. Jaden Mickey played a ton 2 years ago. Christian Gray's played a ton this year for Notre Dame as well. So
Yep.
you're certainly in good hands. You're certainly in good hands.
So I believe if anybody in the country can get it done for me, it'll be him.
Yeah. I believe that as well. He's one of the best coaches in America, without a doubt. Last question before you get out of here, man. We talked about this a little bit, but when Cam Williams came on this podcast, I asked him, who are the top 5 goofiest people in the class?
I don't get that. He's goofier than me.
Yeah, he didn't even include himself. I let him. Carson, I gave him the option to include himself in the top 5 too, and he chose not to do it. I gave him the option.
I understand that. I understand that. That's crazy though. He sat up here. I saw that got thousands of views of this man saying I was the goofiest. Cam, if you're watching this, when you see this, you are goofier than me. And I got something for you, bro. And we already talked about this. He's a goofy. I don't care. That's my boy. He's a goofy too. So we goofy together. It don't matter.
Well, we're gonna end it with this. I gave him a top 5 list. I'm now gonna give you a top 5 list. Top 5 goofiest members of the 2024 Notre Dame class. Start at okay, guys. No, guys. He's number 1?
Yep.
Okay.
Cam Williams. There you go.
Yeah.
Cam Williams. Aeneas Williams. Who am I gonna go for 4?
I was actually surprised that Cam didn't mention Aeneas because Aeneas has a big personality to me. Like, he has a huge personality, But yeah.
Aeneas Williams.
You can also include yourself if you would like to. Okay, there you
Carson Hobbs.
Yeah, right.
And that's my 5th. Let me think. This 5th. Honestly, my 5th.
Yes.
Would be CJ Carr.
Okay. That
what
makes sense.
What were you thinking?
I think that makes sense. I was actually going to ask you because Cam said a couple of people on there that I was not expecting, right? He said Peter at number 5. I was like, really? Peter's just always like very like kind of like no sir, yes sir to me.
I haven't seen that neither.
Yeah. He said him. He also said Bodie Cahoon. I couldn't believe that one either. I was like, Bodie's also very like.
No, he's definitely goofy. I'll be forgetting. He's up there too.
Okay.
He's goofy.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
All right. And then he also said Anthony Knapp. I haven't gotten the chance to really know Anthony that well, so I don't know any about that one. But yeah. All right. So recapping: Logan Saldate, Cam Williams. You had Aeneas Williams. You had yourself, and then you had CJ Carr. That was your top 5.
In order.
All right. I'm going to post this on X so people can kind of get the update here.
In order.
That's in order. Carson, this is a great return episode, man. I told you we were going to be about 20 minutes. We're already over 26 because it was a great conversation. Before I end the show today, where can people follow you on all the social media platforms?
Follow my Instagram, Carson Hobbs 1, and then Twitter is just Carson Hobbs. I'm trying to get to 10K is the goal before I get to Notre Dame Instagram followers. So I need you guys' help. Let's do it. Go Irish.
Notre Dame fans, go Irish. Go follow Carson right now on Instagram. Help him hit that goal. We're here on Carson's Corner, here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Make sure before you leave, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast, 5-star reviews on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. And we'll be back again very soon for another edition of Carson's Corner.
Go Irish.
Sean, that is Mr. Carson Hobbs, 2024 commit to the University of Notre Dame, less than 3 weeks away from officially signing with the University of Notre Dame. Just so people out there know, I'll be doing a lot more of these kind of segments on some of the recruits that are going to be signing in the very near future. And we'll also obviously have our signing day show again, like we did last year. Sean, that was a marathon. You remember that show last year, man? That was a lot, but we'll be back again this year. Sean, I know I had to record that one without you, man, but Carson Hobbs is an impressive kid, man. I'm excited for him to finally get on campus.
Sorry, guys. Silently, I don't know, you judge because we've done shows. I do. This kid has always been at the top of this class for me. Always. And of course, because Mike Mickens is the one that tapped. So that's just trust in Coach Mickens and his ability to analyze and break down film, and just the way he tags certain guys, and the offers that are out there, but you can see like some of the guys he really likes amongst all the offers. And Carson just seemed to be one of those guys that I think early on in the process, when he committed, because he committed very early, that a lot of people were like, I don't know. And then I'm looking at certain things and I'm like, nah, man. There's a premium on Mike Mickens on certain things that go beyond just physical talent. Like knowing anticipation, knowing how to play the position, technical, abilities, which at defensive back, Ryan, you know this, a lot of kids are just fast, athletic, and they get through high school just on their physical ability. So when you find a polished defensive back that's technically sound, that's able to read wide receivers, read formations, he knows how to handle switch routes, knows how to play quick screens, is physical at the attack, at the point of attack. Those are things that are far and few between when you watch film on defensive backs. And so when you get those nuanced things, I think that's something that Mike Mickens is really good at noticing with the guys that he, brings into Notre Dame. And Carson Hobbs has always been at the top of the 24 class for me, not just as a player, but a young man and definitely a personality. And to see him talk about the rest of the guys just shows you that it is, for me, it is a continuation of the seed sown by the 23 class. Because the camaraderie we saw in that class has spilled over into the camaraderie in this class. And I think it's going to continue to spill over into the 25 class, right? Because we can already see that Deuce Knight is kind of that Carson Hobbs of the 25 class, just from a personality standpoint. I don't know what you might come up with. It might be Deuce's whatever, instead of Carson's corner.
Deuce's dorm room. I don't know, man. I'm already thinking of names, but yeah. Oh, funny enough, I actually had a nice conversation with Deuce Knight this morning, and I'll have an interview on him coming out pretty soon at irishbreakdown.com. So, Sean, it's an interesting backstory on Carson, and just kind of highlight that real quick for people that don't follow recruiting. He was committed to South Carolina. He was committed to South Carolina, and Notre Dame, despite him being committed to South Carolina, and despite him being, just during his junior year, Notre Dame pushed hard for that one. That was a guy that Mike Mickens, because he was committed to Notre Dame before Leonard Moore was in the 2024 class, and Notre Dame had just identified him, and they knew that was their guy, and funny enough, I talked to Carson the one time and he was like, you know what? I think I would be rated higher on the recruiting services if I didn't commit so early to South Carolina, because I stopped pulling in offers. You know what I mean? Like, people stopped offering me because you're committed. Like, you're not going to spend all your time on a kid that's already committed to another school as much as you will with kids that are uncommitted. And I think that actually I think that's actually true to it, because I don't know if you saw the fun debate on Twitter right now, but they're going back and forth on who has the fastest 40 time right now, which is pretty hilarious. So yeah, man.
And who the fastest class is. I saw Deuce Knight pretty much tell the 24 class, like, all y'all slow.
I saw that. Sean, we need to see what wide receivers come in the 2025 class, obviously, but 2025, just in terms of speed, is off to a pretty good start.
Absolutely.
You got a 4.5 kid at quarterback, and then you got Justin Thurman, who's one of the fastest players in high school football.
You saw Justin Thurman posted his 40 time in the
4.31. Yeah, I saw that. Which is fantastic, man. So yeah, Notre Dame's gonna have some speed coming, and I know everyone's super pessimistic about the future of the skill positions right now for Notre Dame, or more specifically wide receiver, but we'll be all right, man. We'll be all right. So again, folks, first live interview today with Mr. Carson Hobbs. We're expecting another interview at some point during this show as well. So make sure to stay tuned for the rest of the episode. Sean, while we wait for our next interview, I think we should jump into the mailbag, because we have a ton of questions. And I saw on Twitter, Sean Davis is ready for some mailbag questions. So me and Sean, me and Brian had a nice little mailbag yesterday when all the crazy news was dropping. And so I'm excited, man, to hear your opinion on a bunch of these topics. So that was the interview with Carson Hobbs. Next up, we're going to start a little bit of a mailbag section, and we might have as well an interview that happens during that, but we shall see when that pops up here, obviously. Before we get to the next segment, though, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast, notification bell. Make sure 5-star reviews on any of your favorite podcast platforms for the Irish Breakdown Podcast. All right, Sean, mailbag questions, man. Let's get right into this, folks. Put the mailbag questions in the chat. We'll be here for a while. Absolutely. So I think we had, just to get us started here, we had a couple super chats. I just wanted to put those up first. That's why they always get the priority there. Raymond Harton just said, Raymond, thank you so much for the super chat. It's always very much appreciated, my friend. Go Irish, win the bowl game. Can't wait until 2024. Sean, despite all the craziness of the transfer portal, I am also excited for the 2024 class. I actually just got some good news about roster stuff while we were playing the Carson Hobbs interview that I texted you, Sean. So It's not all bad, folks. It's not all bad. Good things are on the horizon. It's just, you got to get through the muddy water to get onto the other side sometimes. But Raymond, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you for getting the mailbag started off right. We had another super chat from Ryan Elliott, who just dropped in a super sticker for us, Sean. Ryan, thank you so much. Great name, by the way. Ryan, it means little king in Latin. So fantastic name, man. Much appreciation, as always. All right, Sean, let's of course, I got in here like 40 minutes early, and there were already literally the first mailbag question was at 1:14. We didn't go live until 2 Eastern time. So here we go. Abents ND. I've been shocked, honestly, that we have not seen many of all the clickbait articles about Notre Dame commits flipping. Do you think the outlets realize nobody bought it, or can we expect more next cycle?
Oh,
Sean, am I shocked that not a lot of guys are flipping? I mean,
my background is. I'm sorry.
You go. No, you go. You go.
I recognize that it's a different world in 2023, and my background in media is traditional. Even though I am very much open to the evolution of media, I don't understand people that feel the need to. We know news weeks, months, days in advance, and we just are not about to jump in front of young men and steal their opportunity to either commit to a school if they have a commitment, or to decommit if they're going to decommit, or to announce that they're transferring.
Yep.
And that's just the way, that's just accountability and responsibility. That's like media 101. Like, one of the first things I was taught, Ryan, is that I remember I got hired as part of my internship and covering the White Sox was one of those responsibilities.
Okay.
And my boss said, "What's the first thing you do when you walk into the locker room?" And of course, me being, I'm like, "Oh man," have my first question, ready to go. He's like, "No, sit and listen. Show respect to the veterans in the media room because they get the first questions. Just learn how to watch, listen, know the rules. This is media 101." And that's some of the disappointing thing about what we see now, with social media. Some of these guys that are trying to, I don't knock the hustle. I'm all for building your brand, doing what you have to do. But when you lay aside like the ethics of anything, you know, eventually it's going to catch up to you. It will. Eventually it'll catch up to you. And, now it's funny because people were, fighting over who was first with the Rico Flores news. And it's like, dude, we knew about Rico Flores like days ago. Like, what? Like, we just chose not to jump in front of the young man and the university. It's like,
Right.
it's so much meat on this college football, NFL, sports, Notre Dame bone, man, that
Yep.
I just don't see the need. But, it is this insatiable appetite to be first and to build your brand and to, and that's the world we live in. So no, I don't think it's going to change moving forward. And it really might end up getting worse,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, I think it's an interesting question. I'll actually, Abent, like, because last year we were dealing with a lot of, like, there were Jeremiah Love rumors at the end there. There were Braylon James, flipping his commitment to TCU at one point. And there's always those clickbait articles, and I think that they will continue. I just think for the most part, like, Notre Dame commits didn't give anybody an opportunity to have those clickbait articles. Like, no kids took, I was talking to Carson about this, but it's like no kids took visits, no kids put anything out there that would be suggestive. Like, for the most part, it was just straightforward. Notre Dame commits want to be at Notre Dame in 2024 in that recruiting class. So I just think that there was no fuel to even strengthen any of the clickbait necessarily, but it's always going to be there to a degree. Sean, we have to make a quick pivot, sir. We got to make a quick pivot. And I knew this was going to happen. The timing was just a little bit off, but it's fine. We're flexible here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. 2025 Winter Garden, Florida, West Orange safety Ivan Taylor has officially committed to the University of Notre Dame, Sean. Finalists, his finalists, I believe, were Florida State, Michigan, Tennessee, Wisconsin, among a couple others. USC was also included in that conversation as well. Ivan picks the Fighting Irish, Sean. So obviously we're gonna flip this now to a little bit of a commitment show. We didn't want to stream it live for you all because, again, we want kids to have their moments. We don't want to take it away from them. And if we stream it live on YouTube, that means that you all know that Ivan Taylor is committing to the University of Notre Dame because we are a Notre Dame channel, obviously. But big news, Sean. 6 foot, 175 pounds. Of course, he is the son of former Pittsburgh Steeler great Ike Taylor. Comes from a great family as well. But Notre Dame, Sean, gets another player out of the state of Florida, a young man that is rated within the top 35 players in the 2025 class overall by multiple platforms. Huge get for the Fighting Irish here.
Let me tell you something, man.
I want to hear it.
We can talk about it now. This was like the hardest news because, I think we both love this kid. Double R, this was like the hardest news to keep a straight face about during the last 2 recruiting hour shows, right? Because we would talk about Ivan Taylor, and it's like, all right, let me keep a straight face because I don't want to let anything slip out the bag. But this is great news, right? And remember, I've been saying like, 23 class was great. 24 class, I think, is underrated, in my opinion. But the 25 class, I kept saying, like, this 25 class has a chance to be Marcus Freeman's best class.
Yep.
And this is just building upon that narrative that, I guess IB and LL, are known for narratives. But no.
Yeah, right.
But no, it is it's fantastic, man. I love this guy's film. I'm excited to see. I think he's a chess piece on the defensive side of the ball. I think
we'll get there, Sean. We'll get there. We watch a little bit of film in a little bit. We'll get there.
Yeah. I think he's a chess piece. And we've been asking about that, right? Whether offensively or defensively, whether it's development or guys that immediately show up like a Kyle Hamilton and they are chess pieces. That's the next step for Notre Dame, right? Because we have good players at the University of Notre Dame. There's talent at the University of Notre Dame. When you look at the top elite teams that are winning and contending for championships, they have chess pieces on both sides of the ball. And that's the next step, or one of the next steps for Notre Dame.
So, Sean, we're going to get into a little bit of the backstory here because, guys, this isn't like a very expansive backstory, right? Like, it's really not. This was Notre Dame's to lose for a long time here for the last couple months, really. But, Sean, this is basically how this guy went, right? Ivan Taylor, being the player he is, despite being the player he is, Sean, I have a great story for you, by the way, from his coach, which it blew me away. This young man, who is a son of a former NFL player, a Pro Bowl player, too. Ike Taylor was a really good football player.
Mm-hmm.
And also a consensus 4-star, a top 35 player by multiple platforms in the 2025 class. Despite that, you know what he did this offseason, Sean? He didn't have an offer from the University of Notre Dame, so he went up and camped at the University of Notre Dame, did so well that obviously he got an offer from the University of Notre Dame. And since then, things have been in a great place. He has taken 4 visits to Notre Dame. He made a 2-game swing during the season. He went to the Pittsburgh game, then he went to the Wake Forest home game 2 times in 3 weeks, right? And he has been to Notre Dame more than I think just about any school. I think Florida State he may have visited maybe a little bit more, but also he's a Florida kid, so context there, right? But great backstory, and I had Ivan Taylor on the podcast last week or the week before, somewhere in that ballpark, where he talked about that his dad actually didn't want him to come up and visit Notre Dame. It was his mom that pushed him to come visit Notre Dame because she thought that it could fit him potentially. It makes sense, that fit. And Notre Dame has had an ally in Ivan Taylor's mom for a while now, right? So as soon as they went up, they came back during the summer. They've been up multiple times. Honestly, Sean, at no point could I have told you if you asked me who was the second number 2 team in Ivan Taylor's recruitment, I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. He threw the finalist list up there. I'm just like, yeah. Louisville doesn't have a shot there. Florida State doesn't have a shot there. And obviously at that point, I had already known that he had committed to the University of Notre Dame. Funny backstory. When I had him on the podcast, Sean, this is hilarious. Are you ready for this? So I finished up the interview with Ivan. And of course, he was already committed to Notre Dame at that point. He had committed several weeks ago, and this was his decision dates, right? Mm-hmm. Sean, I finished the interview, and I'm just, because I left it very general, how's recruiting, Notre Dame, blah, blah, blah. Afterwards, I'm like, awesome, man. I really appreciate it. And he's like, Mr. Roberts. He calls me Mr. Roberts, which makes me feel really old, by the way. he's like, I don't know if you know this, but I'm committing to Notre Dame on December 1st. I'm like, Ivan, I've known that for a week, man, but thank you so much for trusting me with that information. Thank you so much. Right. So obviously he let me know. I knew it was already happening. Notre Dame lands a big, big commitment. Because Sean, why is this big for Notre Dame, right? Let's talk about the impact here for a second.
Talk about it.
One, you get a top-ranked player in the 2025 class at a position of need. Notre Dame next year at safety, it's going to be a little thin, man. They might have to go to the portal this offseason for a safety, just for depth purposes. They might have to do that. Notre Dame needs more high-impact safeties because we've talked about it. 2024, you ended up with a pretty good 3-man class with Bronte Johnson, with Tabron Benny-Powell, with Kennedy Urlacher, but we know the process was not good. It wasn't. They missed on so many guys. And then you talk about the Peyton Bowen fiasco the year before, and then Brandon Hillman not being able to get into school and having to go up to Michigan. Safety recruiting has been a mess over the last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
But you now get not only a big-time player, but the top recruit that Chris O'Leary has gotten by a landslide at this point at the safety position. You also get another Florida kid as well. You now have 3 Florida players in the state of 2025, including Justin Thurman, running back out of Tampa Jesuit, and Davion Dixon out of Miami Palmetto. 3 Florida players, which is the most that Notre Dame's had in some time now. Of the 10 commits in the class for Notre Dame, Sean, I'm going to hit you with a stat, and I just want your immediate reaction. 10 commits in the class. 6 of them for Notre Dame are from the Southeast. 60% of your class is from the Southeast right now. 60%.
Isn't that a place where Notre Dame was told you're not welcome down here? You're not welcome in Texas. You're not welcome in Alabama. You're not welcome in Louisiana. You're not welcome in Florida. And their staff has pretty much said, no, we're going to go where we want to go to get the best players that fit this program. And that is, we talk about this every week. The strength of this program and staff is that they really are. Some staffs don't have a clue as to what's going wrong or what's the weakness. This staff adjusts. Doesn't mean that they haven't made mistakes. They don't make mistakes. But they don't wait to adjust and rectify.
Yep.
When it becomes apparent to them. And that's been a strength. And I think we've seen that from class to class. Like we look in the 23 class with the way things went down with certain players that didn't stay in the class. And you saw those things kind of rectified in 24. Notre Dame was willing to just move on from guys. Like, dude, we're not playing this game. We're just going to
play
move
the long
on.
game.
No.
Yep.
In 25, now some of the things that they didn't do in 24, which might have been, let's get on some of these guys a little bit earlier. They did that.
Yep.
Because it was something that cost them a little bit in the 24 class. So they learned with each cycle. And that's why I say the 25 class might end up being the best class under this staff and under Marcus Freeman, because they learn from their mistakes and they rectify those mistakes and move on very quickly. So that's something to be excited about as far as the building of talent on this roster moving forward.
Yeah. Sean, I would say this too, outside of the obvious fits in this class in 2025 and with the program moving forward for Ivan Taylor, the great talent that he is, he's also a great kid, really great kid. I said he, called me Mr. Roberts. That's kind of joking aside for a second. Sean, great story, and I wanted to share this. I have an interview that's coming out with his head coach, so he went to UCF, right, Central Florida. He camped there this off season. Sean, he went there, and when they give the recruits questionnaires before they work out and they do the camp stuff, there's a section where you write down your offers. Okay, there's a section, and I want to tell you this before I finish this. Is that Ivan Taylor has over 50 offers, over 50 scholarship offers. How many do you think he wrote down, Sean? He wrote down 6. Close enough, though. After the camp, the UCF head coach or the UCF coach, I forget if it was a position coach or not, they called his head coach at Winter Garden or West Orange, excuse me, and was like, hey, coach, is this right? Like, he only has 6 offers. Like, we watched him. Like, the kid's really good. And then he's like, no, that's just how Ivan is. That's just how Ivan is. He doesn't like the attention. And his coach was very honest about this. He didn't like, and he doesn't like recruiting. Doesn't like it. He doesn't like being the center of attention. He likes playing football, which makes total sense because he barely ever posts on Twitter. He only has like 1.4 thousand followers at this point. This is not a kid that wants this added attention on his plate necessarily. Great fit, Sean. I think he's just a tremendous fit. We always talk about the player, and we'll get into the film later because I think the film is fantastic, and I think that he could help Notre Dame at multiple positions that you already hit on as well. But at the end of this conversation, I think that he's a great fit personally as well. He's a very soft-spoken, just a really humble kid. By the way, I have another interview coming out. I dropped this a little bit earlier, Sean. I talked to Deuce Knight this morning on the phone, talking about Ivan Taylor and his fit in the class. And we have another article coming out there, and it was the same thing that Deuce Knight had told me was, and I already knew this because I've talked to Ivan now several times, but said Ivan is very soft-spoken. He's just a good dude, man. Like, he's just a really good dude. And he even joked that, like, he tries to get him to play on Fortnite, and I was just like, I'm not very good at Fortnite. I don't know if that's a good idea for me to play on Fortnite, but a really good young man, which I think Notre Dame obviously needs these types of kids, Sean. The humble assassins of highly ranked players, the kids that are absolute fits at the University of Notre Dame. Tremendous pickup, man. It just really is. From every vantage point, I just kind of want to emphasize that. It's not just about the player, which matters obviously most, but it's also he's going to be a great locker room kid. He's going to be a leader. Just a good football player, man. Just a really, really good football player.
Yeah. I had to ask him about him and his dad's sneaker/boot game, too. Because the picture they took at Notre Dame on the visit, the wheat Tims were absolutely amazing. His dad's fit was like, and I actually tweeted about it, like, yeah, everybody's talking about the picture and the visit. I'm on these wheat Tims though. Like that's clean. That might not mean anything to you, WR, but that's very impressive to me. Like,
I'm not the person to talk about sneakers with, man.
It's not too many Florida kids you see like in love with a nice boot game.
Well, you know why, Sean? You know why? He spent a large portion of his life living in Pittsburgh. So he's not really a Florida kid. He's a Pittsburgh kid that moved down to Florida after dad's playing career was over. That's more of the situation here.
Yeah, I have to get towards the end of it. You know, I'll love to hear him talk about that. But other than that, look, chess piece.
Yes.
Flat out. And everybody, some people have him top 100, some people have him top 250. Look, he flies under the radar because of the type of kid he is. If he was one of these kids that just wanted to be at every camp and, you know, make sure he builds up his ranking.
I mean, that means so much to me, though, right? It really does. I mean, because Notre Dame now has multiple kids in this class that were not offered until they worked out at the University of Notre Dame. Because you talk about Justin Thurman that I mentioned was not offered until he worked out at Notre. Or actually, he came and worked out after he got offered. But then Daniel Anderson was another one, Sean, out of Arkansas, the running back that we've talked to. He was not offered before he camped at Notre Dame, and he balled out. So, yeah, man, I think this is a big pickup for Notre Dame. Let's talk about the class impact, right? Because this matters a lot to me. 2025 class now has 10 commits in there, Sean. Okay, so you have Deuce Knight, quarterback. You have running backs Justin Thurman and Daniel Anderson. You now have tight end James Flanagan. You have defensive linemen Joseph Reif, CJ May, Davion Dixon. You have hybrid player, defensive end linebacker Dominic Hulak. You have Cree Thomas, cornerback, and now you have Ivan Taylor. Class impact is first safety in the class, right? Which is big. As of today, Notre Dame is visualizing in the secondary, and we've talked about this before, 3 corners, 2 safeties is kind of where they want to go as of today. Obviously, that could change with transfer portal and all that type of conversation, right? That could always change. But first safety in the class, big one, obviously. Highly recruited kid, big-time player, great. Also, Sean, I would argue this, and I want to hear what your perspective on this. Notre Dame is putting together a really good class. They got some really highly ranked players. James Flanagan is a top 150 kid by multiple platforms. CJ May is a borderline top 100 player by multiple platforms. Deuce Knight is a borderline elite 5-star type of player. This, though, because if I asked you before today, who would you have said if I said who is the most important player that is committed to the University of Notre Dame in 2025? Who would your answer be? Who's the guy that sells? Who's the guy you look at and say that's the ringleader of this class in 2025?
You know, sometimes you outthink yourself. It's Deuce Knight.
It's Deuce Knight. It's Deuce Knight. On the offensive side of the football, it's Deuce Knight. He's the Pied Piper. He's the beacon. He's the symbol, whatever terminology you want to throw there. That's the guy that you look at and say, that's our dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the defensive side of the football, I think you have a lot of good football players already, right? You have CJ May, who I think is a really talented player out of the state of Alabama. You
Mm-hmm.
have Davion Dixon, who I think is a real good player out of the state of Florida. You have Dominic Kulak, who I'm higher on than some Notre Dame fans. I'll just put that out there in the universe. Creed Thomas, who's a good player out of the state of Arizona. But is there an elite player that was committed to Notre Dame on the defensive side of the football before today? I'm not sure. I would say elite, very good players, borderline top 100 players in a couple cases. But was there an elite player? Was there a guy that's a symbol of a class defensively? I'm not sure that guy was there yet. But I will argue this, and I would love to hear if you agree or disagree or anything else in between.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ivan Taylor could be that guy. I think you look at him and say, that is the leader of our defensive class. That's the guy for us.
For different reasons, right? Because
Yes.
his personality is totally different than Deuce. But I totally agree with that, right? There's multiple paths to success. And having that successful guy to be that leader for the defensive part of that class, I absolutely agree. Yeah, I can see him sitting in that seat. And it actually will be a perfect complement to Deuce. Because as a class, it's really only one guy that sits at the top, just like the guy in that class.
Yep.
Right. So you don't need anybody else. Now that Deuce is that guy at the top. Now you take somebody on the defense side of the ball that's like kind of token. It's almost like the way Drake Bowen went about his business.
Sure. Yeah.
As the leader of the 23 class. He wasn't that guy that was the biggest personality, but in the background, he was definitely
really respectful. And
yes.
then when he got on the field, it was a different cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like different cat. Nicest kid in the world. I remember meeting Drake for the first time down in San Antonio, in person.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, yes, sir. No, sir. Like he was one of those kids, and I'm just like, that dude. Because then you turn on his film, Sean, you're like, that's a nasty dude, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to mess with him, right? Like, I don't want to do that. But yeah, I think that you hit on that perfectly. I think it's a good balance of personalities as well. I don't think we talk about that enough. Now let's talk though, Sean, because we're going to watch film in a minute here. Positionally, if we're talking about Ivan Taylor and where he can potentially fit for Notre Dame. Because like I said, safety recruits, he's a safety commit in the class for Notre Dame. But I would argue that he can do a lot of different things for you.
Mm-hmm.
A whole lot. Would I be shocked if early on in Ivan Taylor's career, if there was a need at nickel, if they're like, hey, Ivan, you got the nickel spot, and then you'll be a safety long term? Would I be shocked if he was a field safety with the way that he can come down and play in the run game? No. Would I be shocked if he was a boundary safety and he could rotate to the middle of the field a ton and play a little bit more from depth? I would not. It's funny, Sean. There were several teams that were still recruiting Ivan Taylor to play outside corner. Yeah. Several. This kid is a movable chess piece on the back end, which you talked about, Sean. This kid can do a little bit of everything.
I do. I'm trying to think of, would you agree? Because we both believe in coaching and development, and it is paramount, especially in college football. Talent and chess pieces make coaches look better. There are a lot. Hey, let me tell you something, man. Jimbo Fisher is sitting on $76 million of a buyout because of Jameis Winston. Flat out. 2 years with Jameis Winston. That man can go home and sit on $76 million and relax. Not to say Jimbo isn't a good offensive mind or a good coach, but something about having an elite player makes that coaching look better. Nick Saban, you can call him the greatest coach in the history of college football if you want to. You're not saying that without the great players he's had.
Sure.
They've made him look even better.
Yeah.
So this is, if you think the staff defensively has done a great job of coaching and development, which based upon the last 2 years, who wouldn't say that right now at this point? So we feel pretty safe saying, hey, you know what? Xavier Watts is, man, we brought him over from wide receiver. Oh, he's turned into a pretty good safety. Like, yo, if he came out this year, he might be second round.
Yeah, top 100 at least.
Yeah, top 100. You know, if he comes back, he might improve upon that.
He could.
Right? So Chris O'Leary, good job. DJ Brown played the best ball he's played in his time at Notre Dame.
I didn't notice DJ down the stretch, Sean, and that's like the biggest, like, you made that happen because you noticed DJ for the wrong reasons far too often.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've seen, you know, the young defensive linemen. You know, a lot of people took shots at the defensive line coach last year. This year it's been a little bit quiet on that home front.
Sure.
Right? Oh, man, Howard Cross. Oh, okay, Riley Mills. I'll see what you guys are doing. All right, cool. When you know that type of coaching exists in Notre Dame, getting pieces like Ivan Taylor are going to make them look even better.
Yes.
Because that's what chess pieces do to good coaching. They make the coaching look even better.
Sure.
And I think that's what's happening. I think the 24 class offensively has a chance to do that for the offensive coaches. You know, you have some chess pieces, in my opinion, in the 24 class. And we'll see. But, yo, I remember the first time I turned on this film, and maybe you can explain it better than me because you watch a lot more film than me. Right. There's a tendency when you turn on film of a young man whose dad played in the NFL that you expect to see certain things immediately.
Sure.
You know, because of who their dad was or is.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like, you kind of have to take a step back and let me roll through that again. It's almost like listening to a song again. Like,
that's what we call preconceived bias in the scouting community, Sean. Yes, you have those preconceived notions. Absolutely. Yep.
So you have to fight through that, and then you start to find these little things like, oh man, this kid is really versatile. Oh, I love his hips. Like, yo, this kid can play outside. Like, oh, it's not a disadvantage if he has to go out one-on-one with a tight end.
No.
Like, if we have to put him in a slot to stick Brock Bowers, like, okay, I feel comfortable with that. Yep. I feel comfortable with him being able to take away the best player or the chess piece on the other team.
Or at least slow him down. Maybe take away his a little too strong, but slow him down for sure. Absolutely. Yep.
But heck, I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. Slow him down. You're right. But that's what you get with this young man. And we don't want to overstate, but we're just talking about really the upside that we see from this young man and his impact. And having that, because I'm interested in hearing, we saw the impact of Thomas Harper.
Yes.
Who, in my opinion, gave a lot of stability to the slot position, which was a huge question mark.
It was.
Like, we knew we had Cam. We knew we had Ben Morrison. But I was like, who's playing slot? Like, is Clarence Lewis going to play slot, right? Or is Jay Mickey going to be moved to slot? Do we really put a true freshman and Christian Gray into that difficult situation? And you get Thomas Harper, and it was like all of that went away.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, we don't have to worry about that, right? And of course, they targeted, Thomas Harper. Most teams tried to target him. Why? Look at the two dudes you have outside. If you're going to pick your poison, yes, that's the guy we want to go after. So I think that the ability for him to solve multiple, look, man, when you can do multiple things with the same players on the field, and when teams run different packages out and you can stick to the guys that you have on the field because the guys on the field can do a lot of different things, that's such a huge advantage in today's football with the multiplicity of offense and spread offenses and people wanting to pass the ball 60% of the time. And the game is continuing to go in that direction. It's not going to change. We can't overstate the chess piece. And we're talking about him before the coaching. because we've seen the development at the safety position.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to see Ben Minich. I'm super excited to see Adon Schuler. I'm super excited to see Ivan Taylor. Dude, I'm super excited to see Trey Thomas.
Hopefully to see Xavier Watts come back, ideally as well, would be great. Yeah.
In my opinion,
yeah,
there is room to grow for Xavier Watts.
Yes.
But you can't. We talk about this all the time. Xavier Watts is a playmaker. If Xavier Watts had stayed in the wide receiver room, I have no doubt that Xavier Watts would have become a playmaker. He would have found a way to make plays. He has a nose for the football, right?
Yep.
And I think he was a much more physical player this year than we've seen in the past.
Especially down the stretch. Down the stretch.
Yep. So, by the time Ivan Taylor gets in and he develops, we could be talking about potentially, like you said, top 50 to 100 player forecasting when it's time for him to make a decision to go to the NFL. And at that safety position, Notre Dame has not been able to. Notre Dame has really good safeties in the NFL, but they're like years apart. Like literally, Notre Dame could have 2 of the 5 best safeties in the NFL this year because Harrison Smith has been fantastic.
Oh, he always is. Yeah,
and I think he matches with what Brian Flores wants to do. Like what Brian Flores likes to do, quick decisions and smart safeties when you're putting a lot of pressure. That's Harrison Smith. That fits him. Like that's perfect for him. They literally have 2 of the top 5 safeties in the NFL. That's arguable. You can argue that with him and Kyle Hamilton. But in between those guys, that's a huge gap in between those guys and their time in Notre Dame. What else?
Right.
Notre Dame has a chance now, to kind of go on a run.
Yep.
Of putting in top 50 to 100 safeties into the NFL. And that's going to bode well for recruitment down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think safety, because Sean, I think you make a great point. I don't think many people question if Chris O'Leary is a good coach, right? Like, I think that's pretty consensus. I mean, he did a very good job with Xavier Watts, obviously, in the transition. I think he did a really good job, obviously, with even DJ Brown, Houston Griffith, like making those guys who are not great football players look serviceable, right? And be able to do that. So I think that he is a good coach. I would agree with that 100%. And if he can bring in more guys like Ivan Taylor as a good coach, then we're talking about them being developed into a very, very good safety room in the NFL long term. So, yeah, I think we're on the same page there, man. Movable chess piece, but a safety that can do a lot of the word that you use, multiplicity, right? He's a very multiplicative football player. You do a lot of different things, Sean, a lot of different things. So let's watch some film, and then we'll get into a little bit of what's next for Notre Dame for Ivan Taylor. So I'm going to pull up his junior year highlights because, again, this is a 2025 kid. If you think he's good already, he's only going to be good. He's only going to be better next year, right? Like he's only going to be better. So let's pull up Ivan Taylor's junior season highlights. Again, he is out of West Orange in Winter Garden, Florida. Very talented football player here, Sean, which will, hey man, when you see something you like, Sean, you shout it out, sir, because there's a lot to like on Ivan Taylor's film, man. Here he is playing strong side safety here. And I think you see that short area quickness, the ability to really kind of mirror and match in man coverage. Here he's a corner, again, mirror matching on a little bit of a pivot route with the pass breakup. Sean, he can play man coverage against pretty much anybody, which makes him incredibly valuable to a team.
Because of what they're going to face, right? And it's not so much, let's say, next year's schedule. And that's not because he won't be here. The elite teams. And I keep saying Brock Bowers because to me, that's like a chess piece.
Oh, yeah.
That jump, or Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't think you would put him on the number 1 receiver on a team. So more than likely, he's going to face someone along the lines of a Brock Bowers. That's a tight end.
You know what I would call him, Sean. This is just what I usually call these players that are a little bit versatile with their alignment in man coverage.
Yeah.
They're matchup negators, right? Because offensively, you're trying to create matchups, right? You're trying to create advantageous situations for you. And I think Ivan Taylor is a guy that can be a matchup negator for teams, what they're trying to do for you offensively. You want to line your best player up in the slot? Cool. You want to line him up outside? Cool. He can kind of mirror match just about anybody, which I think makes him really, really valuable.
Yeah. So when you talk about that, I look at this film. Like I said, his reps at cornerback were just as impressive as his reps at safety. And the anticipation. Anticipation is a word that a lot of people don't apply to safety, but it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Your eyes, your anticipation, and a lot of that is recognition pre-snap. Like, what do you see? And you could tell it's a benefit to have someone that's been in the game and a kid that's been around the game, because they pick up certain things that other people just don't pick up. And it becomes part of them. It's just who they are, right? It's almost like DNA. Like, dude, I find myself as I get older doing some of the same little things that my grandfather did. He didn't teach me how to do it, but we have some of the same quirks. It's in the DNA. And so you talk about have a pro bowler as a dad. It's just certain movements and certain things that are just part of who you are as a player. It's DNA. And unfortunately, other people don't have that. Right? So when you talk about the nuance mixed with the physical ability and then the knowledge, because he's had conversations with his dad about the game. He's been coached up about the game, right? He gets coached up and then he goes home and his dad on a game where he's probably had 2 blocks, 2 PBUs, an interception, and a forced fumble. And his dad is sitting there at the table like, yeah, you done messed up, right? You didn't do this right. Your technique wasn't right on that play. See, that type of stuff is the type of stuff that a Bryce Young gets, that he gets, and other players that Notre Dame, whether it's the 24, 25, 26 class, are going to be locked into. That's so beneficial, man. It's what Ben Morrison came in ready from day one in the fall, ready to contribute, because he had certain things that were just part of his DNA that you can't teach, that you, as a defensive back coach, you try to get across to kids. And when you see kids that automatically have it, man, it's a blessing. And it makes your job as a coach much easier. So when you see a kid that understands multiple positions from a technical standpoint and understands the game and sees the game from those two, because those are 2 totally different point of views, right? 2 totally different point of views. I'm sorry. Playing shortstop and playing third base is 2 different things.
No doubt.
Playing right field, playing left field, the ball, the way it comes at you, it's 2 different things. And when you have someone that's able to play multiple positions at a high level, man, the word blessing is the first thing that comes to mind, right? Thank you, Mom, for loving Notre Dame. Thank you, Ivan, for being the type of kid you are, type of young man you are that fits Notre Dame. And Dad, thank you for listening to his mom and your son. There you go,
man.
Thank you.
You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong. I mean, Sean, I feel like we always come back to that though, right? As far as like, how often is it just like the mom played such a pivotal role in someone coming to Notre Dame? It happens all the time, man. And literally, Ivan may have never visited Notre Dame without his mom pushing that envelope. So yeah, man, thankful for Mrs. Taylor for making that happen. And obviously, you guys see, if you're watching with us live on YouTube, pretty dang good football player. You've seen him line up in the slot already. You've seen him play outside. You've seen him play both field and boundary safety. You've seen him rotate down in run support. That's the craziest thing about him too, Sean, is he's only about 170, 175 pounds right now. And he comes up in the run game, man, with violence and force. Like, he is not afraid to get his nose dirty. He's not, which tells me he's a safety probably long term, just with his play style, like probably.
Look, that secondary with Troy P, his dad, Ryan Clark, all of those guys brought the wood. And they were all small and skinny. Well, Troy was a little bit bigger, but he was short in stature. But they weren't like the most physically imposing defensive backfield. But everybody brought the wood when they arrived at the ball. So that's a mentality. That's like you grow up, that's the game. That's what I'm talking. You know, he just picks that up because that's the game. That's the way he knows. He doesn't know any other way to play the game. Like, this is how you play the game. Whether I'm a cornerback or safety, physical play is how you play football. And this is, let me tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say in the last 2 years, is there a more impactful commitment at safety
Then Ivan Taylor?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I didn't want to jump off. I didn't want to get ahead of over my skis.
Because this is the thing about the Ivan Taylor commitment. Bronte Johnson was going to come to Notre Dame if he could academically qualify.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to come to Notre Dame. There was no doubt about that. And you know what he did when he was able to academically qualify, Sean? He came to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
That was it, man. That's it. He wanted to be at Notre Dame. Ivan Taylor is a Florida kid who's a top-ranked kid. He's also ranked a lot higher than Bronte is. I think Bronte's got probably as much upside as Ivan in a different role, but like Ivan brings such a high floor to the table too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's kind of that really good balance. But yeah, I mean, it was not a foregone conclusion that you were ever going to get Ivan Taylor early on in the recruiting process. It was a foregone conclusion that as long as Bronte handled the stuff in the classroom that he needed to handle, he was going to end up with Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it. So yeah, I think it's the most impactful one because he wasn't a player that was necessarily a shoo-in for you to get. He also is coming from a place that you've had trouble recruiting, the state of Florida, and he's a very highly ranked player. So yeah, man, I think that that is very fair of you to say that this is the most impactful safety recruit that Notre Dame has had since Kyle Hamilton. I think that's very fair. I can't think of somebody more highly acclaimed and with a higher resume. Like I can't think of a guy. So
yeah,
I would make
the chat was right. Like I didn't, Aloy Gilman is playing wonderful. Julian Love is playing wonderful at the safety position. Right? I forget what I think Julian was a 4th round pick. Was he 3rd or 4th?
I believe he was a 4th round pick. Yep.
Yeah. And then Aloy Gilman was 6th. So that was my point. We're not talking about 4th and 6th rounders. Notre Dame has plenty. I said it. Notre Dame has plenty of guys playing safety in the NFL that are playing well.
Yep.
But 4th and 6th rounders does not move the needle when it comes to recruiting.
Absolutely.
This is a young man that has the chance to be top 50, top 100, and that's what players look at when they look at development. Where are your safeties or where your position coach, where are your guys being drafted? Are you getting guys into the 1st round? Are you getting guys into the 2nd round? Heck, we know Notre Dame can coach.
Yeah.
Notre Dame consistently has the 6th or 7th most, 5th, 6th, or 7th most players in the NFL. Like Notre Dame players are going to go to the NFL and make rosters because they've been coached well. That happens. But that elite, like we haven't had, it's been Harrison Smith, Kyle Hamilton, as far as those top 100 players that have gotten drafted at the position, because Julian Love wasn't a safety at Notre Dame.
Yep. Well, and Sean, can I say this real quick because I'm just following in the chat? Who's your daddy? Notre Dame has signed 5-star corners in the past. That is stupid and not true. And everybody else, please stop responding to Who's Your Daddy because I'm going to block him in a minute most likely, but just stop responding to him and he'll go away. That's how trolls work. Trust me. I spend a lot of time on X and Twitter, unfortunately, and if you ignore people, they tend to go away. And if they don't, then you block them. Very, very simple strategy there, right? So yeah, they've had 5-star corners in the past. It has happened. But anyway, Sean, I think you made a lot of great points, man. I think the last thing that we want to talk about here is what's next in the 2025 class for Notre Dame, specifically at the safety position. Now that we're looking at what could potentially happen, because there's a lot of different ways that this could go, Sean. I would say that there's 3 guys on the safety board right now that I would say are a little bit higher as far as Notre Dame pushing for, and a little bit in the pecking order right now at safety. One is Ethan Long, who's out of Brunswick School in the state of Connecticut. You also have Jadon Blair, who's out of Mount Tabor in the state of North Carolina. And then you have Trey McNutt, who's out of the state of Ohio, really talented player. Now, I put them in that order because full transparency, and I've been very honest about this. Trey McNutt is a player that Notre Dame is recruiting and has been on Notre Dame multiple times, but I don't think that I don't think he's a realistic option for Notre Dame right now. I think that is definitely a Ohio State type of player, right? Like that's my opinion. The other two, though, are very reasonable. Very reasonable. Ethan Long, I could definitely see ending up at the University of Notre Dame. I could see Jadon Blair ending up at the University of Notre Dame. Now, the trouble that you're going to get into, or I won't say trouble, it's a good problem to have, is that as of right now, Notre Dame is going to take 2 safeties in the 2025 class. That's the number. So obviously with Ivan Taylor on the board, that's 1. You have basically 1 spot left open at safety unless numbers change. And numbers can always change. They can always happen. But so basically you have 1 spot left open for most likely Ethan Long, Jadon Blair. So it might come down to, Sean, who wants to commit first? Who's ready to make the plunge? Because I think Notre Dame likes both safeties very much, like at a high level.
And what it does is it, keep using chess. Ivan Taylor sets the chessboard at the position, right? Because now you say, okay, we got him. Now we can just sit back, be patient, and let this thing play out. Be honest with the guys that have offers and say, hey, it's 2 spots for 3 kids. Or it's 1 spot left for like 3 guys. Like, hey, it is what it is. So as you pointed out, it might come down to who decides to commit first. But it's a very advantageous position. It's a position that Georgia constantly puts themselves in, right? With guys like, hey, we got these other 2 kids. Like, man, you got to think about that. These other 2 kids can commit before you know it. And, you want to have that type of, like you said, going into the new year with 10 commits. Ryan, we're talking about half the class being done before the new year. Like before National Signing Day for the 24 class.
Well, it might be a little bit of a bigger 2025 class.
So that's true. But I'm just saying, like most classes are you put in the 20s. Just say 20,
sure.
21.
Sure.
Right? So hypothetically, 40%. Let's just say 40% of the class is done.
We'll do that.
You still have to retain. Right? But 40% of the class is done. And who knows? In the month of December, somebody else might jump up and say, hey, I'm ready to commit. Yep. So that percentage might go up. That is a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
Going into next year for the staff, who would much rather be focusing on retaining than trying to get guys. And having those guys locked into the class helps with drawing other great players into the class because kids want to look at who they're going to be playing with.
Yep.
It makes a huge difference. So, fabulous job. Like in the midst of everything that's happening right now, give the staff the credit they deserve.
Yeah.
For what they're putting together in this 25 class.
And you technically now have every position accounted for defensively. If you want to count, because Dominic Hulak, again, he's a hybrid player, right? He could be a linebacker, he could play Viper, he can move around a little bit. But if we're counting him as a linebacker, you now have Davion Dixon as a defensive tackle. You have 2 defensive ends in the class as of right now. One in Joseph Reeve could eventually play interior, but we'll see. Obviously, that's down the road with CJ May, obviously, as well at defensive end. You also have a linebacker in Dominic Hulak. You have a corner in Cree Thomas, and you have a safety in Ivan Taylor, Sean. I mean, that's a That's a great start defensively, man. That's a really great start defensively. Notre Dame defensive, because that was the one, I think, the thing that Notre Dame fans who follow recruiting pushed back a little bit on the 2024 class was that the offensive class was stellar, right? Like stellar. You got CJ Carr. You got the two running backs, Keedron Young and Aeneas Williams. You got the three wide receivers in the class. You have Jack Larson in the class. You have a four-man offensive line class. It's like, that's a stellar offensive class, man. Absolutely stellar. Defensively, Notre Dame did take a little bit of a gamble on a couple kids as far as like projecting development for. I mean, we've talked about Tabron Benny Powell in the past, right? We've talked about Teddy Rizak. We've talked about Bodie Cahoon. We've talked about a couple of these guys where it's like the tools are there, but like they're not that yet, right? They could be that though. And I think that that's what people like push back on the 2024 class a little bit. 2025, the defense, I mean, because right now, let's think about this. Deuce Knight, quarterback, two running backs, and you have a tight end offensively. That's your class right now. Now, I expect the offensive class to be very good in the end, especially with Deuce Knight aboard. But ultimately, right now, the defensive class is off to a great start. Very strong. And it's kind of, I don't want to say reverse the trend, because I think the 2024 class is going to end up being a really good defensive class, but a lot more certainty than what there was in 2024 this time of the year. A lot more certainty than a year past at this point for defense.
And depending upon the makeup of the classes, we're starting to learn that it could fluctuate, right? Because 23 was, the defensive class is really good. The offensive class is, okay, then in 24, it's like, the offensive class is really good. The defensive class is not as good. So from year to year, it could fluctuate, based upon, like I said, the leader of the class in 23 was a defensive guy. Leader in the class in the 24 class, offensive guy, CJ Carr, right? Deuce Knight, offensive guy, 25. So we'll see. It's all about point of view. It's subjective, because like you said, I think the 24 class, because of the defensive class, is vastly underrated, in my opinion. There are guys that we love on defensively in the 24 class that other people might look at because of the star system and say, well, I don't know. Like, okay. And then look, a kid from the 23 class, just to stick with safeties, from what we heard and saw in the spring before he got injured, Ben Minich is going to end up being in the rotation somewhere down the line. Whether it's rotational, special teams, he's going to make an impact because he was a playmaker in high school. That's what he did. Next to a 5-star at the same position at his school on his team, he was the one making the big plays at the end of games. And that's that type of DNA we talk about, man. When guys just find a way to be around the ball and make plays. That's what Drew Tranquil was, right? He's a late addition to the class. I think Drew was a 4-star. I think he was a 4-star. He might have been a 3-star.
I think he was a 3, but maybe rose to a 4 late on at least one platform. I think it's something like that. Yeah, because he was committed to Western Michigan at one point, right? So yeah.
But Drew ended up playing like game 1.
Yeah,
for the Notre Dame defense on the back end. So, that's because he was a playmaker, man. He always found a way to make plays, and that is something more than stars. Heck, you want to find that trait at every position.
Yeah. You're right, man. You're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, I think it's said perfectly. So, folks, that's going to wrap up the commitments of Ivan Taylor, star safety 2025 out of Winter Garden. Actually, I keep saying Winter Garden. Winter Garden is the city. He's out of West Orange High School in the state of Florida. We are still expecting to have a visitor on the podcast, a special interviewee. So make sure to stay tuned here. We're going to transition back to the mailbag that we started earlier because this show has been a little bit wonky because the announcement came a little bit later. We were trying to time it up well, but timing doesn't work sometimes. Pivots happen. We're all good here. So before we go, though, like button, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, notification bell as well on the bottom of the screen. Go to If you're listening to us on one of your favorite podcast platforms, 5-star reviews are always very much appreciated, especially say you love the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. You absolutely love it, right? You love it. And come back every single week for it. And also boards.irishbreakdown.com for all your latest recruiting and team intel. But we're going to get to the mailbag next here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Sean, we have a lot of interviews, man. A lot of interviews, a lot of questions, all right? A lot of questions. So let's go to next ones. I know you have a lot of thoughts here, Sean. So we're going to get to them, man. First, we had a question from We Are Happily Independent. I like that. That's really fun. Any truth in KK Smith being activated? So I don't believe he's been activated as far as he's been cleared to play, to my knowledge here. I believe, though, he is working back, and I do believe he is getting back on the practice field. I believe the same thing is the same case as Deion Colsey right now, is that he is practicing, but I don't think either has been cleared to play in a football game as of now. So we'll see if that changes. I mean, you got plenty of time until the bowl game. Obviously, that stuff can always change, but as of right now, I do not expect to see KK Smith in the bowl game today. But yeah, we'll see. All right, Sean, we had a question from Colton Simpson, which is a very interesting one. What do you expect the wide receiver rotation to look like for bowl game as of now? What's the rotation, right, Sean? Well, first, let's say who we expect to be in the bowl game at wide receiver, right, with the Rico Flores news today. So as of now, with Deion Colsey still sidelined, KK Smith still sidelined, you have Jaden Thomas, who should be available. You have Jaden Greathouse, who should be available. You have Jordan Faison. You have Matt Salerno. That's it. Am I missing someone? Like, I think that's it, right? As of now. And then hopefully, I don't know if this will happen, but hopefully Deion Colsey maybe could play. I don't know. Maybe. I know he's been, back and practicing, so we'll see.
Maybe we can go scout lacrosse practice or something and find another kid. I don't know.
That joke has been made several times in the chat over the last couple of days, and I fully understand it, man. Sean, I mean, I think the better question is, how would you handle the rotation? Because all those guys are going to play, obviously, right? I think the better question is, what personnel groupings are you going to use the most? What other tight ends maybe could help you in certain wide receiver spots, potentially at times, running back usage? That's the question for me.
Well, that doesn't really change. 12 personnel, 13 personnel. Notre Dame is Notre Dame. Notre Dame is going to be Notre Dame. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. And if Aldrich Estimate plays, they're really going to try to run the ball and lean on their defense, play to their defense, not turn the ball over, play action, and then, if you have 2 receivers out there, that means if you have 4 to 5, it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is what it is. If you do get KK activated, that helps, right? But the question will be on the outside. Because I don't want to see Jaden Greathouse used on the outside. Put him where he's supposed to be. Inside. You want to move Jordan Faison outside for a few snaps and keep him in the slot, when you bring in 3 receivers. Put the players in the positions that are going to make them successful.
Yeah.
Without depth, that becomes a challenge.
Yep.
But hey.
Apparently, people were telling me in the chat that the news came that KK Smith was activated. So if I'm incorrect on that, I did not see that before the show started. Maybe that is a new situation. But, I mean, either way, though, Sean, I mean, he hasn't played in a game this year. I don't know how much you're going to be pressing him into duty, but, I mean, we'll see. I mean, crazier things have happened. And crazier things have probably happened in the last couple of days, honestly. So, yeah. All right, we had a question from Coleman Smith who says, does Notre Dame look at any late bloomers or flip candidates for 2024 at wide receiver, or does that happen after new coach is hired? Sean, so as of right now, this is what I anticipate Notre Dame doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can talk about if it's the best strategy, I guess. So right now, I don't anticipate Notre Dame flipping any 2024 wide receivers because we're very close to signing day. And then, after that, you're talking about I don't want to call it scraps, but it's slim pickings as far as finding receivers to the second signing day. And it just gets a little bit muddy there. I will say I expect Notre Dame to be active in the portal, which we've talked about, right? I expect them to go after at least 1, maybe 2 transfer portal receivers.
Yeah.
And then I expect 2025 to maybe be a little bit bigger wide receiver class than maybe we were initially anticipating. That's my impulse, Sean. I don't know if you agree with that strategy, if you would change that strategy, but like that's what I feel is probably going to happen here.
I agree with that. I think too, realistic, right?
Yeah.
Because we think about this. A month ago, we were talking about like, yo, Notre Dame has no need to go to get a wide receiver in the portal. Just develop these young guys and the guys coming in. And now it's like, okay, yes, you need two in the portal, and don't just go get two guys. Try to get two impact guys.
Yes.
Right. You know,
Oh
someone
yeah,
that come in.
In the portal, you need to find guys that have legitimately been productive and can come in and play.
And Ryan, there have been some. Yo, I have small eye slits, so I really can't give you the surprise eye, like the big eyes. I wish I could, but there have been some moves by wide receivers in the portal that are like, what? You for what? Like you got a great coach, great young quarterback. Why are you in the portal?
Right.
It's 2023, man. Money and situation. It's the same reason we've seen wide receivers leave the defending national champion the last 2 years. Why? Opportunity to be the number one guy and money.
Yeah.
That's where the world is. So I think by the time we get to the opening of the portal, we'll see even more names at the wide receiver. This is actually lining up the way it's going to see it to be a great batch of receivers in the portal for Notre Dame and what they're dealing with.
And I think we have a question of like a couple guys that maybe keep an eye on. I mean, there is a lot of good receivers out there though, Sean. I mean, there is. I mean, Notre Dame can find help if they need help, and obviously they do need help right now from the depth perspective of wide receivers. So, yes, we will be talking Notre Dame wide receiver transfer portal a lot over the next month and a half or whatever the heck it's going to be this offseason. So I'm ready for that conversation because it is certainly going to be asked a ton, and it should be asked because Notre Dame needs to find depth at that position. There's no doubt about that.
And the second part of that question that's actually interesting because I don't think the wide receiver coach is going to be hired for the bowl game.
No,
I don't think that's going to happen. But do look out for whomever that coach is. There is another national signing day. Keep that in mind.
mm-hmm.
Like this is the early national signing day. There is a late national signing day. And if that coach is coming from a program and a kid has not signed, but he is committed to the school, which happens.
Yep.
That kid come with that coach that he has a relationship with? Or could a kid transfer late because that coach trying to follow his coach to Notre Dame? So, you know, that's the new coach could impact that after the bowl game. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yep, absolutely. And here's the question I was talking about, Sean. It was actually the next question. Pete Weber had asked, as of now, who are the top most realistic portal names to join the wide receiver room? Pete, unfortunately, I can't really put names out there. I have heard a couple names that I believe Notre Dame will have interest in, but that's more a board topic as we're allowed to kind of release those names, unfortunately. All I'll say is that there are some good players in the portal, man. I mean, there really are. I mean, there's a lot that are in the portal.
But you can go ahead and talk about the types, though, Double R.
Yes. Well,
you talk about the types.
Yeah. Because someone keeps asking about just like short slot receivers and stuff. And I'm just like, guys, Notre Dame needs to find speed and they need to find length at wide receiver this offseason. That's what you lost this most, right? Like Rico was a good freshman this year. He played really well in certain games, but you can replace his skill set, I believe. You know, like you can replace his skill set with his classmate that's still there in Jane Greathouse. Like you can replace a lot of what Rico did. You're losing though Tobias Merriweather, 6'4" and can run. You're losing Braylon James, 6'2" plus and can run. You need to find a couple kids that are true outside receivers that can run a little bit and have length. Like you need to find a boundary kid, especially. So Notre Dame needs to find some length and some speed on the outside, guys that can play in the boundary a ton. That's kind of what I see. So. Because Jordan Faison could do some stuff to the field, right? Jane Greathouse could play both positions of the field. He can even play in the boundary at times, but I think that you need a better option than playing Jaden Greathouse full time in the boundary. That's just not his best spot, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, Sean, I think this one's going to set you off. Let's go. Irish Kansas says, it seems like the wide receiver culture among the players may have been broken. Do you think some of these departures will help others stay or possibly choose to return?
See, it's not going to send me off. I promise you I'm going to stay calm. Because what I get irritated by is people trying to create an episode of CSI out of something that is literally a story out of the Encyclopedia Brown book. You remember Encyclopedia Brown? Have you ever read an Encyclopedia Brown book? Dude, I love it.
I sure have.
It's mysteries that are literally written for kids that are based upon deductive reason.
Yep.
It's all about deductive reasoning. Like no forensics, no, just deductive reasoning. Can you read and pay attention as you're going on to the clues that are being laid out in the story? And people just refuse with this wide receiver situation to pay attention to the clues that have been going on since the last bowl game.
Yep.
That either has been spoken about on Irish Breakdown or has been spoken about on Lucky Lucky Podcast.
Sure.
And now that everything has come out in the wash, for whatever reason, people want to give these other narratives or other stories to try to take away from the fact that the wide receiver coach failed at his job in multiple ways. Right. That has been talked about in multiple shows.
Yep.
So I might not choose to call him a bad coach, but there are a lot of people in this world that would say, if you're bad at communicating and you create friction amongst the people in your room or pit people against each other in your room, some people might say you're a bad coach. That's their opinion. I don't use that. I'm just going to say you did a bad job at Notre Dame.
That's fair.
You did a bad job at Notre Dame. You failed your kids in that room, period. You use your imagination. I've been on record. Some of the things I've heard, not just from one person, not just about 2 kids, up to 3 to 4 kids with the same experience. If that was my, yeah, it's a possibility I would have wanted to throw hands.
Yep.
So we don't have to dance around that. And I don't have to say verbatim what took place. But from that, if you are a parent, just think about it.
Yep. Use
your deductive reasoning and figure out that, it must have been some heavy stuff going on that made Marcus Freeman change his approach of, I'll deal with this after the bowl game, to, oh no, I got to do something about this now. Deductive reasoning, people. Yeah. We don't need CSI, forensics, deductive reasoning. It's easy to follow.
Yeah.
And when you tried to make one individual that had the same story back in April out to be a bad apple, okay, it's one person. You can get away with that. He was a bad apple. But 2, 3, 4, they all can't. Tobias Merriweather can't be a bad apple. Nah. No. So sometimes at the University of Notre Dame, whether it's recruiting, Ryan, Notre Dame screws up certain recruiting with certain kids. They just mess it up. It is what it is. And the kid chooses to go elsewhere. It happens. Every time a recruit chooses another school, we can't fall to this narrative of, they're NIL based. No. Sometimes Notre Dame, their coaches mess up. It's life. And we have to get out of this mindset within the Notre Dame fan base and the media of, we have to protect the kingdom and the image of Notre Dame.
Right.
Like these type of things don't happen in Notre Dame. Get over yourself. It happens. Coaches can actually not be good at their jobs at the University of Notre Dame. It happens.
It does happen. Happens everywhere too.
And when it happens, just accept it. Stop searching for, or it has to be something else. It just has to be something else. Oh, see, Rico went. He loves Stucky. Yeah. Yes. And Stucky's gone. It's a reason why Stucky was the first person he thanked in his post.
Yep.
Stucky's gone. And as soon as Stucky left, he started looking. So that shows you who his loyalty was to. He's like, yo, let me go find an advantageous situation for me, because this situation is no longer advantageous for me. I'm not assured of anything. You know why? Wait a minute. You know why? Because what was done to the best returning receiver by the wide receiver coach could be done to me by the next wide receiver coach, because I'm not his guy.
Mic drop. I like it, man.
It's not people. Stop. This is not an episode of CSI, man. Stop listening to all that other stuff. No one has blamed everything on Chancey Stuckey.
Yeah.
So stop believing that crap too. No one has blamed everything on Chancey Stuckey. He is a major part, of what's going on right now.
Sean,
major part.
It's always the same thing I talk about, man. You're either way to the one side or way to the other. It's just like, guys, we can say that there was a main issue here and still say that it's not the only issue here. Like, we're allowed to do that, right? Like, we're allowed to have that conversation. It's not like, I don't know, man.
Like, what are we doing, man? This is like turned into something that's like comical. What are we doing? Every move is scrutinized. Like, okay, it has to be something else.
Yeah.
Dude, I've been saying there's dysfunction on the offensive side of the ball everywhere all season. What are you talking about? Not once in that dysfunction did I even bring up Chancey Stuckey. Not once. Because I let that play out. I said what I said before the season. In the summer. And I stand on what I said. I said he was under the microscope and was on the hot seat. Everybody was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, all right, let it play out. Let it play out. Let it play out. We don't have to use specifics. When you have parents angry enough and emotional enough, and when I hear the stories, and as a parent, I say to myself, yeah, I might have wanted to do some things. You're smart enough. You don't need specifics. You're smart enough. At that point, you know, okay. So yes, and in 2023, let me say this, Ryan, this is not your father's college football. This is because I know I'm fine, because this might offend some people. And this is why I say Notre Dame and recruiting doesn't have to lead with 4 for 40 with every kid. You know why? Because that 4 for 40 don't mean a darn thing to Rico. Don't mean a darn thing. It will, but wait a minute. This is the kicker. It means a hell of a lot to the guys in the defensive back room, doesn't it, Ryan? Because they're not getting playing time. They're stuck behind guys. They know that it's a small chance, a small percentage of them getting on the field without injury, but they're choosing to stay, aren't they, Ryan?
They sure are.
They're choosing to stay and be developed by Mike Mickens, aren't they, Ryan? They're choosing to stay and be developed by Chris O'Leary, aren't they, Ryan?
Sure are.
Nobody's trying to connect to Marcus Freeman from that situation, are they, Ryan? But we got to do CSI forensics about this wide receiver thing. But they're staying for the degree. They're staying for the development without playing. But all of a sudden, turmoil in the wide receiver room is, oh, no, this doesn't make sense. This has to be something else. Man, stop. Stop. Just stop. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. The man failed at his job. And he did not represent the head coach. That's why the head coach moved the way he moved. All that other stuff, man, yep. Debate that on Twitter. But don't fall for the dude. Don't go there.
X now, man. It's X now. You don't know what you're talking about.
On Twitter, X, whatever, man. Stop. Like, dude. Like, stop. Because it's not even that serious. What are we doing? We keep dragging it out. Just let it die, man.
Yeah.
Ivan Taylor committed to the program. The 25 class is on fire. They're probably going to get a pretty good quarterback in the portal. They're probably going to get some good wide receivers in the portal.
Yep.
And people just want now CSI. Let's connect this to Parker. Let's connect this to Freeman. Let's find a way to connect this. Dude, we've been saying it's dysfunction on the offensive side of the ball for months. And no one has ever, please find evidence on this show or LL where all the blame went on Chancey Stuckey. Please pull the footage.
Sean, you said you weren't going to get riled up, man.
Hey, man, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan. It's foolishness, man. It's foolishness. Dude, there's nothing to protect here.
I get it, man. Trust me. I totally understand. I love Sean. This is my favorite Sean, honestly. This is my favorite Sean. I love this Sean, man. I love this. Well, I love the normal Sean too, but I love this Sean. That's all I got to say, man. All I got to say.
And then, Ryan, you and I know some of the foolishness that's being said.
There always is.
By reasonings, right?
Yeah.
You know, disgruntled people, when they leave, they sow seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And try, this is the real reason. And miss me with that.
Yep.
Miss me with that. And I see, that's the type of stuff that ticks me off. Because honestly, we're being really nice, not getting into specifics. Hey, now you want to leave and you want to try to paint narratives as you leave going out the door. We're being nice, not giving specifics. We're being nice. I know I've said, I think you're a really good dude and a great guy.
Yep.
And I think you're going to be a really good coach because you're going to learn from this situation. But don't, hey. A lot of people in Notre Dame media that know are being real nice, not getting into the specifics.
Mm-hmm.
Real nice.
All right. Couple super chats here, my friends. Couple super chats. Thank you for the question, by the way. Paul Olmstead with the super chat. So I heard Dante Moore is in the portal. Can he play wide receiver? LOL. It's funny. We needed that all, Paul. We needed that after that little bit of a, high stake conversation there. So I don't think he could play wide receiver. He's a good athlete for a quarterback, pretty good athlete for a quarterback, but I don't know if I would want to throw him passes. I don't know if that would be I don't know if that'd be the way that I would go with Dante. Just my opinion. Also, I know, joking aside, but Dante's never coming to Notre Dame. So I heard there's a rumor of Michigan State, Sean, where I'm like, oh, okay, sure.
Oh, that would be with Jason Smith, right?
Jason Smith, which I like, but I think there's other reasons why you would be going to Michigan State other than Jason Smith. But
a Michigan State might be, and they might be in a consumer mode, though.
They could be. You're right about that. You're right.
They don't owe that previous coach that contract.
You are correct. You're correct. Hey, man. I hear you. Hey, man, if Dante can keep his eyes forward and doesn't let the outside noise drown him, I think Dante's going to be great. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in college football. Great. I think he's tremendous talent. But, yeah. Wicked Bronco Productions with a super chat. Wicked Bronco, thank you so much. We always appreciate you, sir. Or madam. I guess you could be a woman. My apologies if you are. I almost wonder if Marcus Freeman had a talk with these kids and said, if you're only committed to Notre Dame because of Chancey Stuckey, then this ain't the place for you. I don't understand why all these kids want to leave. Give me Jamori Macklin, Lacey. I think Lacey is the kid from South Alabama, if I know what he's saying. Yeah.
Sean, I like the Lacey kid too, but
yeah, Lacey's pretty good. Sean, I would say the beginning conversation is that, look, if a player wants to leave, and this isn't me knowing what Marcus Freeman did or the staff did, because I'm sure that he tried to talk a couple kids into rethinking that decision. I'm sure that happens, right? But there has to also be that line, Sean, where you're just like not begging a kid to stay, right? Where you're like, hey, man, we're going to move forward. We would love you to be a part of it, but like also we need people to be committed to it, right? Like needed to be committed to it. So I do think there's that fine line that Wicked Bronco Productions is bringing up though, where it's like, and I don't know exactly what the conversation was that Marcus Freeman had with the recruits that have decided to leaving and transfer portal. But I do think there has to be that line of like, hey, dude, we want you here. We value you. You're a part of our plans. But also, you're not the program, right? You're a part of the program. So I do think that conversation needs to happen if it hasn't happened. And I think it probably has happened.
And, loyalty is, you have to respect people. I might not like Rico being in the portal, but I respect him being honest about his feelings. Like, you know who he is. He's very honest. Like, yo, I'm not feeling this. Like, man, I'm loyal to Coach Stuckey. I didn't like the way things went down.
Yep.
I'm going to go find a more advantageous. Okay, cool. That's real. People have to realize, man, and this hopefully Notre Dame evolves, man, because I do. We gotta get. It's almost like this high horse that we sit on, and we refuse to evolve. You can't. Why would Tobias Merriweather trust Notre Dame in his last 2 years of development? Tobias Merriweather wants to go to the NFL.
Sure.
And right now, that's more important to him than a Notre Dame degree. And you can sit up here, because see, I'm not one of those people that believe the Notre Dame degree is the end all be all. Like, you can't be the best you can be if you don't have a Notre Dame degree. I don't believe in that, because I believe there's multiple universities that can bring the best out of people.
Sure.
That's my belief. That's the way I look at life. So, yeah, that whole, when you have situations that can't be trusted as far as development, then people will elevate other things above the Notre Dame degree. We just pointed out on the defense side of the ball, kids are staying locked in with Mike Mickens. They're staying locked in on the defensive line with competition for the most part. Why? There's trust there from a development standpoint. There's trust there with the coaches in the room, because they're having the same conversations that were supposedly being had in the wide receiver room. The running back seemed like they trust Dylan McCullough.
It's very true.
We are in 2023, man. That old model of, the Notre Dame degree keeps kids there. No, man. Kids are showing you. Athletes are showing you. No. Is more important than this degree.
Yep.
So I'll sacrifice this degree to assure that I'm properly developed and then I'm in a better situation. Who's going to be the quarterback? We don't know. Who's going to be the wide receiver coach? Oh, we'll find out after the bowl game. Tobias is like, I'm not trusting that. Nope. Who's this? I won't even know that guy. I don't have a relationship with that guy. Or do I go and reconnect with the guys that recruited me, the wide receiver coaches that recruited me, that are in a better position, and I trust my development to them because I know. Come on, people. This is not, kids aren't turning their back on the Notre Dame degree. They're looking out for themselves and putting themselves in the best situation for their development in their career. And to think that they can't become great businessmen or network or do anything else outside of football because they didn't get the Notre Dame degree, it's like, come on, man. Things happen in life. It's 2023. This is not college football from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. And whether you want to believe it or not, these athletes are showing you the leverage that they have now. You've never heard of freshmen jumping into portals. These athletes are showing you that the leverage and power they have is bigger than just NIL money. They don't have to sit around and wait for these programs anymore.
Yeah.
They don't.
They don't. And a lot of kids leverage themselves to being bigger than the program a lot too, which makes it a little tough to get around sometimes. We had another one from Wicked Bronco Productions, Sean. Another super chat. Thank you so much, Wicked. More likely we get McAllister out of Boise State, Mitchell out of Florida. I think it's Chris Mitchell, Jamori Macklin out of North Texas, Bo Collins out of Clemson, or Raymond out of Texas A&M. The only person I wouldn't have much interest there, Wicked, is I don't think so. Raymond's a young cat. I think he only had one reception for Texas A&M this year. I think it's Raymond Cottrell, right? Is the wide receiver there? He's very talented, but he's not going to give you instant production more than likely, right? Like you don't know what he's going to bring to the table. I'm not the biggest McAllister fan of Boise State, but he was productive last year and he's 6'4". That plays, right? Mitchell was very productive, over 1,000 yards. Jamori Macklin had over 1,000 yards. Bo Collins, we saw him against Notre Dame and did a pretty good job against Notre Dame. So I would have some level of intrigue with all of those players. I would say that the only one that I would say is just not an option is Raymond Cottrell. I don't think that Notre Dame's going to go for a young kid in the portal. I think they're going to go for experience and production. That's my 2 cents on it.
I'll say it's some really good. I'm watching this Liberty, New Mexico State matchup. There are some really good players at wide receiver that might be jumping into the portal. That's going to be man. I know this is big weekend. You love offense.
Yeah.
If you love offense, watch that New Mexico State Liberty game. It might end up being one of the best games of the weekend.
It might. You're very well. It may end up being. It's going to be a really good game because, I mean, Liberty's undefeated, right? Like they're undefeated this year so far. So, but I think they could get upset. Like it's possible. But yeah, it's going to be a really good game.
I promise you, if Malik had not called 2 of their games, I would have not watched the Liberty game all year.
Their quarterback was originally at Tennessee, I believe. Caden Salter, pretty talented player. And then they have the wide receiver, right? The one wide receiver I believe you're referring to mostly is they have like a 6'4" kid. Daniels, I think is his last name.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty good. CJ Daniels, maybe. Yeah. I think that might be his name. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, Wicked, I think all those guys are guys that I would personally look at. I just, for the Notre Dame side of things, I doubt they look at Raymond Cottrell. I think that they go for experience in the portal at wide receiver. Great question, though. Gavin Wright Sean said, hello, fellas. Hello. Ryan, just wanted your thoughts on why Cam Hart won't be a high first-round corner, aside from, I guess, his injury history, because when I watch him play, I don't see very many corners better. Gavin, so there's 2 things that Cam Hart has going against him, okay? So there's 2 things. One, you mentioned the injuries. And it's not just injuries. It's, Sean, that he's a defensive player that has multiple shoulder injuries. That's a little unsettling. Because think about it as a GM of an NFL team, right? I'm investing a lot of money into these players to be a part of my program. And a defense, as we know, one of their main obligations is to tackle the opposition, right? So if you have bad shoulders, it's kind of hard to avoid having bad shoulders defensively. It's kind of hard. It's very difficult. So that's the big thing against Cam Hart. The other big thing is ball production, ball skills in general. For a former wide receiver, Cam doesn't always play the ball that well in the air for the most part. Like he's a little bit of a choppy guy when the ball gets in the air to a degree. He's got 2 interceptions in his career, and it came in the same game against Wisconsin a couple years ago. Like he literally hasn't had an interception his last 2 years. Now, that being said, I put this on X earlier, Sean. He's nearly 6'3". I think he's like 6'2" and 7/8. He's got 32+ inch arms, and he can run. Those things make up an NFL corner. I think Cam Hart's going to go somewhere on day 2 as long as the medicals check out. I don't think he's going to be a first-round corner, though, because there are still medicals, and the ball production isn't quite there where you would want it to be. Yeah. He isn't a guy that's turning the football over a ton in the opportunities he gets. So I think those are 2 of the big things that Cam Hart needs to answer this draft season.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, Cam Hart is going to be a 10-year NFL vet that's possible. Like 2 or 3 Pro Bowls and like just solid. And he's going to be a leader. I'll stamp this. Wherever he goes, he's going to become a leader in that organization if he stays healthy. That's just who he is. That's
Great
just who he is.
Great character.
Great character kid. But you say something. Look, and I talked to a couple of people. I think the game that kind of after the North Carolina State game, I talked to a couple of people that are scouts that were like, yo, why does it seem, what's up with Cam Hart, at Notre Dame, this time in Notre Dame, and just in conversations, they were like, yo, this North Carolina State tape is bananas. Yeah. Like this kid he could be a day one pick, but it goes back to the medicals, right? Same thing that you said about Peyton Wilson. You've been on social media talking about that. It's not about his tape. His medicals is.
Sean, Peyton Wilson's not going to do anything in Mobile, Alabama that I haven't already seen on film. There's nothing he's going to do. I need to see the medicals, and he does have an arrest in his background, right? So, like, there's going to be answers as far as, like, character stuff, and I don't think that it'll be a big deal because I've heard a lot of great things about Peyton Wilson from a character perspective, but he'll have to answer that question, and then he'll have to answer the injuries. He's had multiple shoulder injuries, and he's had a knee injury in his past. Like, again, linebacker with bad shoulder. You're looking at a linebacker with bad shoulders right here, Sean, literally. And I had to stop playing because it was just like, dude, that's like my job, right? To make tackles is my job. Linebackers with bad shoulders is not a good combination to have. So that's the thing with Peyton Wilson. He's another medical check that needs to check out this offseason. Cam Hart needs to check out. Like, and again, it's not just, are you healthy now? Will you be healthy next season? They're looking at everything, right? The long-term, what are you, what is your, how is your body going to hold up? They do like bone density scans and everything. And it's all a part of the evaluation aspect of everything. Like literally they do a thing called DEXA scan where they measure the body for bone density. You know why they do that? Because they want to see how dense your bones are for the future so you don't have recurring issues of injuries. That is the biggest thing.
Look, man, this kid, and I know I've been on record with people that were very critical of Cam Hart saying, look, go ahead.
Finish your thought.
You were looking at your phone because you have to have something.
We have a special guest that's coming in a second, Sean. You finish your thought though.
No. My point is, a lot of Notre Dame fans have been critical of Cam Hart.
Yeah.
Without the understanding, and like we said, we try to let you guys in. Like Cam Hart has played through so many injuries, man.
Yes.
It's like, and you really couldn't judge. That was the thing that I would say. Like, you're not getting Cam Hart, man, because this dude is playing defensive back through core injuries, abductor injuries. And like, dude, how do you play defensive back? How do you go line up to stop, in Jigba Smith game one, or Ibuka game one with a core injury? That
it's very tough.
If you weren't really young at the position, you probably would not be playing. But because your team needs you, you go out there 80%, 75%. And people want to jump on your performance like, guys, you really don't know. And now that he's been healthy, his senior season, he's arguably been the best defensive back for Notre Dame, which he was his first year he transitioned when he was getting two interceptions against Wisconsin, just blanketing people. It's like, man, I love the kid, man. That's why I think he should have been the last one announced on senior day. Just my opinion.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. So, Sean, we have a special guest. I promised you all that we would have a second guest in the podcast. Going to bring him on right now. The newest member of the 2025 class of the University of Notre Dame, Mr. Ivan Taylor. Ivan, what's going on, man? Congratulations.
How you doing? Thank you. I appreciate it. How you doing, Mr. Roberts?
I'm good, man.
Also, Mr. Davis, how are you doing? Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Pleasure to meet you, man, and congratulations on your commitment.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Davis.
Absolutely.
Ivan, we're just so excited for you, man. I know I've been texting you a little bit, and I know I feel so bad because you're super busy with everything, but thank you so much, first and foremost, for just taking a few minutes with us, man. We almost have 900 people in the chat right now, and I know they're all super excited for the commitment and everything, man. Just let them know out there. Why Notre Dame? Why was this the best time for you right now?
I mean, me and Chad talked about it. Best time, Chad thought was December 1st. I thought that was the best time as well. My family thought that was the best time as well. Why Notre Dame? I mean, the coaching. I've been saying it. I'm gonna keep saying it. The coaching. I mean, there's no other coaches like the Notre Dame coaching staff. I mean, they just show love. If they want you, they're gonna tell you they want you. You're gonna know that they want you. To me, that just plays a huge part. You forget about the money. You forget about the stadium. You take all that away, and you talk about the coaching. I think that's one thing that Notre Dame really was different from other colleges, other coaches. Like, they always communicated with me. They always had something to say, what I can get better at, where they want me, where they want to see me at. Just little stuff like that. I don't think college coaches understand how much that could go to a player like me. You know what I mean? When you have a coach that you want to develop a relationship with, that's just huge. To me, it's like my high school coach right now, Coach Thompson. We have a great relationship with him. I could talk to him on the field or off the field, and that's the same thing I could do with Coach O'Leary, Coach Freeman. It doesn't get much better with coaching, in my opinion.
Well, and Ivan, as you can see, man, a lot of congratulations in the chat from the Irish Breakdown family right now, man, because everyone's super excited for you, obviously, to be a part of the class. Let me ask you about just your day so far, man. One, being able to enjoy this, and then how's the family enjoying this as well?
Yes, sir. So honestly, I'm just taking it in right now. My mom's taking it in. My dad's taking it in. We prayed about it a lot. So to me, it's just, it was God helping me. Prayer is the biggest thing in my family. So prayer was really just the final decision on it.
So Ivan, I'm interested just to kind of go back to that's fair. I've never really heard a lot of high school kids talk about the importance of trust when it comes to a coaching staff and how far that can go with a recruit. And when you tapped into that, it made me think about, what was it exactly? Was there something or a moment or a conversation that you could bookmark with the staff that made you say, man, I can trust these guys with my future and my development?
I would honestly have to say, once I got up there for the Irish invasion, I did my thing. I felt like I did my thing. They obviously thought that I did my thing as well, and Coach O'Leary was always by my side. Like, I was always remembering what I can get better at, what I can't get better at, what he needs to see from me. And I did it, and he would, be jumping up and down with me. So it was that was a huge moment for me. Then I had to talk with Coach Freeman, and it just flowed. You know what I mean? It wasn't weird. It wasn't like I was nervous or anything. I met him, and I think it just clicked from there.
Ivan, you've now been to Notre Dame 4 times. I'm sure that you're excited to get back there now as official commit. Let me ask you about the 2025 commits in the class. I actually had a nice conversation with Deuce Knight this morning just about you and everything, man. What's it like to be a part of that class, and how special are those guys that you're now joining?
Yes, sir. I definitely think these guys are special. We have a group chat. We have a whole bunch of group chats. So we're all just getting closer. We all want to go in as a great bond, play for each other. And I think that's the biggest thing is going to be our brotherhood coming into this and playing for each other.
I need to ask you because Deuce told me that you guys have been talking a lot, obviously, but he said that he keeps trying to get you to play Fortnite, and apparently you're not the best on the sticks at Fortnite. That's the word of the street.
Not on Fortnite at all, but Rainbow Six Siege and Rocket League, I feel like no one can really mess with me when it comes down to that. He has his game, and I feel like I have my game, so that's just how I feel about it.
See, he's nuanced, Ryan.
Yeah.
See that Rainbow Six? See, that's like the underground. Everybody jumps on a Fortnite, right? That's correct, like that pop 100 song that everybody plays. But not a lot of people know and dig into crates and find those gems. That Rainbows, I know you're nuanced. I respect your gaming now. I respect this gaming now.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, Ivan, we gave a little bit of backstory as far as your recruitment, how you ended up with the Irish. I was very complimentary of you as a person and player, obviously. Let me ask you, for Notre Dame fans that are listening who are excited about the future of the program, what do you feel like you can bring to the table as a person, as a player? What can you bring to the Irish?
I'm hard working. I feel like I work my butt off. I feel like if you take everything out of it, speed, agility, strength. I feel like I will outwork the person next to me. I feel like, I'm very consistent when it comes down to that. I work. I've been working since I was 4 or 5. So I feel like, it's just my dad always taught me, it doesn't matter what you do, just be the hardest worker at it. And I feel like that's probably the biggest thing that I'm coming in to do.
What's your favorite? Interception or a big hit?
I like a big hit.
Love that.
Yes, sir.
Love that, man. Yeah,
See,
we're watching your film.
That's that DNA. Remember that DNA from the Steelers secondary? I was like, dude, if he's in that DNA of Clark, his dad, and Troy P, you already know he's playing the game physically. You already know.
Sean, I think you had did you have a shoe question?
Oh man,
was that on there?
I was saving it for the end, but everybody was going crazy when you came on the last visit with your dad, and they were just loving the fact that you and your dad were there. And I'm sorry, man. I was like, your dad's boot game is tight. I was like, dude, the flannel and the weeks he had on that day, I had to retweet it like, his week game is tough. And then I saw you were rocking some too. I was like, it's not a lot, but you're not a Florida kid per se. But your shoe game, I'm sure your dad and your shoe games have to be pretty fantastic.
Thank you. Yes, sir. So I'm not, honestly, me and my dad aren't really big on shoes. I'm more of a comfortable type of guy. So I'm a hey dude, Crocs, Uggs type of guy. I'm not really into like the Jordans, the Dunks. So I'm very comfortable when it comes down to shoes. I go by shoes and cleats. So not shoes and cleats, but like Crocs and cleats. So that's probably the biggest thing that like when it comes down to shoes, like I don't really spend money on shoes or anything.
You customize your Crocs? I do.
I actually do with like the gibbets and everything. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have like a Chicago set with that strictly Chicago inserts. Then I have some other that's kind of like, Africa based. That's what's up. I like that.
Yes, sir.
Ivan, last question for you, man. Enjoying the day. What do you and the family have going on the rest of the day to celebrate?
Nothing. Honestly, we're just happy to be alive. We're going to thank God. And that's about all. We think of it just like another step in the road that we got to keep going. We're not going to let this become too big, to overcrowd our mind. We love what's going on right now, but we're going to stay working hard and keep grinding, keeping our head down. I think that's the biggest thing for me is, I'm not going to get over happy. I'm excited about it, but I still got to remember at the end of the day, I got to put in work and I have to show out spring and show out seniors. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Love it, man. Well, Ivan, you're heading back up north, obviously. Spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh. Notre Dame's excited to have you. I'm not going to bother you the rest of the day, man. You go enjoy it, and thank you so much for your time today, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Roberts and Mr. Davis. I appreciate you guys for having me on the podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Congratulations and best to your family, okay?
Thank you. You as well.
The 2025 class for Notre Dame, Ivan Taylor. That's going to wrap it up today. We'll talk a little bit about him in future episodes, but we got to get out of here, folks. So before we leave, you can please hit the like button. YouTube channel as well. Go on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. 5-star reviews are also always very much appreciated. You can catch me and Sean next week on the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour here on the Irish Takedown podcast.